Call the Board of Commissioner meeting to order for Custer County. Today's December the 5th. The time is 9 a.m. Ms. Ballard, would you care to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, welcome. Ms. Camper, would you care to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Prince.
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
Thank you. Audience introductions. Ms. Ballard?
Tracy Ballard, Wet Mountain Tribune.
Jackie Davis for the Sentinel.
Osage Rural, Custer County.
Linda Washington, Citizen.
Dennis Sprecher, Recycling.
Wilson Jarvis, Ute Mesa.
Gary Hyde, Road and Bridge.
Thank you very much. Welcome, and we're glad you're here today.
And Brenda's here.
And Brenda. Brenda's always here.
here.
That's right. That's right. Our first agenda item this morning is approval of the November 22nd minutes. I believe you gentlemen, as well as myself, have a copy of said minutes. Thank you, Miss Camper. A lot of work for a long 4.5-hour meeting, wasn't it?
That was a...
Maybe it was longer than that, actually. Yeah. From 9 until,
3 o'clock or something.
3:30.
well, if we're to trust your minutes, that would have been, 3:10.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the minutes that was submitted today, and I find them to be complete, and I'd like to commend Kelly also for a job well done, and I'd like to move that we approve the minutes as given.
Thank you.
I'll second it, and thank you, Kelly.
Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Minutes of November 22nd have been approved. Thanks again, Kelly. Appreciate that. Commissioner items, Mr. Kanda.
Don't have anything new, except I'm making the rounds. I'm going to see Gary this afternoon, I hope. Talk to
Okay.
him. Can make the rounds of the rest of the crews that I'm looking at. And also, I want to get down to Wetmore and see that cool building that everybody's been discussing. So one of the guys down there invited me to have coffee with them. And they meet I think every day at about
Every
10
day,
o'clock.
yeah.
So I'm going to go down there a couple times
Good.
and scope it out.
If your family are puzzle people, take a puzzle or two down. They'll look highly upon that. They're big puzzlers down there.
As in written types or a
Jigsaw
Jigsaw bunch of
puzzle,
those.
yeah. They're big jigsaws, yeah.
My mom was a big jigsaw too.
Yeah, good. I mentioned this at our last meeting, and I would pose the question again either to Counselor or certainly to you two gentlemen, and probably more to Mr. Prince. Commissioner items. Historically, have you viewed that as just a commissioner report time? Do you use it to add items to the agenda, to bring up? Could you speak to that?
Previously, what the commissioners did was report on extraordinary meetings they have gone to since the previous meeting. I met with this group and this kind of thing was discussed. If there are some specific items in any of our areas of responsibility, we would bring those up at that time.
I guess somebody had an emergency of some kind and wanted something to be tended to.
Right, if there was something to be tended to. Normally speaking, adding things to the agenda was done as a separate line item on the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda at this time?
And I apologize, I glazed right over that this morning, so we will go back to that.
That's okay. So it was more or less of just letting the other commissioners and the audience know that the commissioners, what they've been up to, who they've been visiting with.
It's almost like an activity report.
An activity report is really what it is.
Okay, good. Thank you. maybe we should go back to amending the agenda. I'm sorry, I blazed right over that. So with that being said, Mr. Canada, do you have any amendments or changes?
No,
to
I'd
the
like just to
agenda?
ask a question though, because you want to have an agenda out in plenty of time so the public can be here to comment on it and whatever. So what are the rules to amend the agenda?
Certainly can amend that at any meeting.
Right?
And I don't know exactly what the protocol is for getting things on the agenda initially anyway. Typically, that would come through the chair. Request to have something put on the agenda would go through the chair and then it would be placed on the agenda. Yes, sir.
My understanding is, and I'm welcome to be corrected, is that we can add things to the agenda as long as it's not an item that we're going to vote on. If
So you can
it's a-
have a discussion on something you might want to put on an agenda item. later.
Absolutely, but
Okay.
if it's an item that we're going to vote on, then the public
Right.
needs to have notice that we're going to take some action. So that's the way I understand it.
Counselor, would you care to interject? Do you?
No, that's the way it's traditionally been done. I mean, it's amended for small things that have come up, but if it's a major issue, anything that you are going to vote on, you can amend it to put it on, but then you wouldn't vote until the next time around. And as far as putting items on the agenda, typically, at least when I've wanted to put something on, which isn't that often, I just usually call Brenda and tell her I have something I'd like to have on. I haven't gone through the chair, but I can certainly do that if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling for it either way. I just have never been involved with a group or an organization that chair wasn't at least involved in the discussion of what went on the agendas, which also leads us to the question, well, I can ask it later, if I don't forget to ask Ms. Gady about that very thing, so. Yes, sir. Yes.
As a private citizen, I can tell you the way we've done it is to submit something to Brenda directly.
Which certainly is a very user-friendly approach to do that, because she's here all the time.
Maybe you could just review it with her after she had.
Right. Yes, sir.
And I agree with Mr. Jarvis. I like to just call and say I have an item I'd like to put on the agenda. Maybe it's a road and bridge or a whatever. And then I feel if Brenda feels that it's significant enough, she can then bring it to
It's a good
the
idea.
three of us. So that's kind of how we've done it in the past, but whatever you want to do is okay.
That's fine. Do you have anything, sir, for the amendments to the agenda?
No amendments to the agenda today.
Okay. See, I've got a few things I'd like to report on. I don't know whether to put them on an agenda or do it during commissioner items. That's my dilemma. I hate to add them as agenda items when they're just basically a follow-up to something else, so.
Talk to it now.
That would be the appropriate time. If it's a new item, we'll do it as an edit to the agenda. If it's a follow-up that you've worked on. it's
All right,
appropriate.
so we're good with the amendments to the agenda. Let's revert back then to commissioner items.
Just
Go ahead, sir.
reporting. I've met with the tourism chair. I've met with planning and zoning a couple of times over minor issues. I've spent a bulk of my time since our last meeting with HR, trying to hammer out how
Some good stuff you were doing.
Well, thank you. Trying to hammer out what's the best approach for our interviews and hiring process for December 7th. So that's basically what I've been doing.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to follow up with you gentlemen, and Jackie provided us with hard copy of some notes concerning the lights on County Road 150. I had brought that up as really an informational item on the November 22nd meeting. I had been approached by some landowners about the situation with the yard lights on County Road 150, as some may know as Muddy Road, and with your permission I'd like to read the information that she provided us. Custer County Commissioner. concerning a light fixture on County Road 150, AKA Muddy Road. This light and the others are connected with Hermit Basin and have been in place with the approval from the planned unit development for Conquistador, Priestley Robbins, and Hermit Basin. As far as I can find, this was developed and approved by the county pre-1980s. Penny Zeller from Hermit Basin pays the electrical bill for these lights. Sincerely, Jackie Hobby. So certainly brings to light some information that I wasn't aware of.
Can you remind everybody what the complaint was?
Well, it wasn't
Or the
necessarily a
issue,
complaint.
the issue.
The question to me was who owns the lights? There are at least 3 mercury vapor lights up near the Hermit Basin, Priestley Robbins subdivisions, 2 being down a little lower, and they're side by side right on the first curve as you go up Muddy Lane. And then 1 further up Muddy, and then off to the north, actually out in the middle of an open field. So the question was brought to me, number 1, who owns them? Are they necessary? And who's paying the electric bill? So I think that pretty well answers kind of my questions concerning that. It was also brought to my attention this week that we're not getting those bathroom floors cleaned quite as well as we probably should be. I inspected them all yesterday, and I kind of agree that the floors are getting pretty well mopped out around, but in, around, beside, and behind the toilets and that kind of thing is probably not satisfactory. So if I could maybe ask our administrative assistant to at least touch base with our cleaning contract people and just say, hey, can we look at the matter, and if you feel that it's satisfactory, let us know, but certainly we need to bring that to their attention if you wouldn't mind. Yes, sir.
I probably should have mentioned this at Commissioner items, but I have been working with HR, getting a job description prepared to send out for our own cleaning and maintenance person. So just as an adjunct, I didn't drop the ball since we spoke. I've been working diligently on that, and I think we agreed that the prior notification in the newspaper was satisfactory, and that will be placed in both papers very soon.
Will that be posted as a combined
Yes.
custodial and maintenance position?
Correct. It'll be a custodial position with minor maintenance. I don't expect to get in there and redo the air conditioners that we don't have. But yeah, I mean, light bulbs and minor things like that, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I read that job posting, looked
Good.
very thorough.
Yeah, it did.
Good.
I know we are moving towards interviewing for an IT director position, and I wonder if and when we are going to sit down and hammer out the details of that interview process. Do we need to put that on an agenda item for tomorrow and discuss how we're going to do that?
I was going to suggest this under new business, but I think we should add it to tomorrow afternoon's agenda so we have our 24-hour notice, so that the 3 of us can sit down and figure out what will be the protocol and how will we do that so that we can be consistent in the way we handle it, if that's acceptable to you.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. So,
Okay.
we would like to add that
You
to
do
the...
have the court security meeting at 1:30 tomorrow?
Well, I would say let's do it after the court security meeting then. What? That usually lasts, what, about 30, 45 minutes? Well, we're all going to be at the court security meeting. Can we put an agenda item on without a specific time, that saying that we'll have that meeting after the court security meeting, or do we need to say it?
Is it a
2:30?
workshop?
Yeah, it'll be a workshop.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well, let's just, if you wouldn't mind, please,
Yeah.
posting that.
Yep,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you.
Is that acceptable?
I think so, yeah, because there's definitely some details we need to hammer out before we actually go into that interview process.
I
And,
think about that.
and then secondary to that, do we want to invite everybody that's on the interview committee to that workshop? Or is that something the three of us can lay out the framework for?
I think we can really do the framework. Everybody else participates, so they can ask.
I don't have a problem.
Okay, good. Okay, anything else under Commissioner items? Very good, we'll move on. Counselor?
I wanted to ask one question about the muddy road lights you just talked about a minute ago and this information we have here.
Yes, sir.
Was one of the issues that somebody was saying those lights were too bright? Because if that's the case, I'll put on my dark skies hat and advise the board that dark skies can contact Ms. Zettler and see if she would be interested in changing them out. We would provide, that's what we do, we provide LED lighting that would be shielded and would still provide all the light they need to negotiate that road, so.
Yes, I would say that was one of their concerns. It was more of, who owns these lights? Why are they here? And why do we have two of them on this corner? And who's paying the electric bill? And that kind of thing. But certainly, I would say if the Dark Skies group wants to pursue that, that would be...
Between you and them.
Yeah,
And I'll talk to Jim Bradburn about that, tell him that, and we can check out the lights and see if it looks like something we'd be interested in replacing if Hermit Basin is willing to do that. Okay, under attorney items, last time when we were here, we discussed, I'd written that letter to Eaton, and we hadn't gotten any response. We did get a response, now you've all seen that. Dallas Anderson is going to be here tomorrow for his regular report, and I would suggest we bring that up at that time and share this with Dallas and let him take it back to the Airport Advisory Board for some input from them.
Sounds like a he said she did.
Yeah, it does. We got different versions of what was discussed on that.
Yeah, I'm just perusing again here, and
It just made me think, what's the point? What are we trying to get? What are they trying to do, actually?
Well,
it's a
it may be
dispute
something.
over...
I know it's a dispute, but
It may be something where we might want to try to compromise and meet him halfway or something on this to get it taken care of. But I'd like, to hear from Dallas on this. So.
right.
But I know he had suggested at one time maybe we could offer something less than the full, what was it, $3,800 they were asking for, and they might be willing to negotiate on it.
Yeah, I found it interesting, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
May I? And this probably is a question for Dallas and his advisory committee, that the letter states that Eaton also requests that the commissioners reevaluate their position on the additional work performed by them that was not included in the contract. Would that be the eventual replacement of the valve, do you know, Clint, or?
I'm assuming that's what they're talking about after they were called back and had to do their troubleshooting to, because according to them, they had no idea there was a valve issue. So that's what they're talking about here.
And do we know, Brenda, has that, any portion of that money been paid to Eaton on that voucher? Because here they say that they've been invoiced 60 days and they have not
Yes,
received any
we
payment.
just sent the majority of it, the agreed upon amount from the quote. It was like
88.50.
Yeah,
88.50.
88.50 was sent out at the end of November.
Okay.
So they should be receiving
So
that.
this was a cross in the mail kind of thing, their comments to that. So I know
Yes,
we
so
had
the only
voted.
disputed amount was the extra.
Correct.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have a contract between the sheriff and the town of Westcliff that I've reviewed. This is an annual contract. I've looked at it. It's standard. It's the same contract, basically, that the sheriff has entered into with the town. And I would recommend that the board approve it. I see the Sheriff Harley's already signed off.
Is that a new item?
And it could be under a new item instead of under attorney item, and maybe we should bring
Let's
it up
wait
there.
till we get to
Yeah, it's on the,
On the
as new
agenda.
business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can look down there. All right. At our last meeting, Wet Mountain Fire Protection District was here asking if they could use some hangar space at the airport. I have prepared a draft of an intergovernmental agreement, which I emailed to Dallas yesterday. I just wanted some input if there's anything else from the airport's point of view that they think should be in there. And since he'll be here tomorrow, I'm sure I will have heard from him. And then I'll present it to you. This is just a first draft, and we can also share it with the Fire Protection District and negotiate from there and see what else needs to go in. But I did work on that. After Jim Bradburn and I had met with Vic Barnes and Jackie Hobby about the workshop that's coming up on December 11, where they're going to be pretty much discussing amendments to the zoning resolution regarding light pollution. And I did prepare a draft proposal. I sent it to Vic and Jackie. I got input from Vic. I made some changes to it. And if it's acceptable, at least to him initially, this is something he wants to present to the members of the Planning Commission ahead of time, and I'll also share it with all of you, of course, as well. It's just sort of an idea of the proposed changes that we're contemplating to the zoning resolution. And then that will lead into the other issue, because we've gone back and forth on this as far as when the Board of County Commissioners meets with the Planning Commission, whether these meetings should be recorded or not. They've always been treated as far as giving the proper public notice. We've always done that. But in the past, and I sent you all an email on this yesterday, that there's always been some disagreement on whether those meetings should be recorded. It used to be the Planning Commission would have their formal meeting where they would hear from an applicant for some sort of, on some sort of zoning issue. The commissioners would sit in on that evidentiary portion of it when there was evidence presented, wouldn't participate, but would listen to it. But then, as soon as the Planning Commission had heard everything, they would immediately discuss it themselves on the record and make a decision as to what kind of recommendation they wanted to make to the commissioners, and then the commissioners would vote right then. And I know they were sort of uncomfortable in the past doing it without having some time to study it. So we agreed, and this was back in January 2016, we split that up. The commissioners no longer attended these planning commission meetings, but instead waited for the Planning Commission to do its business and then make a formal recommendation, either in a form of a written letter, which is how it was usually done. Jackie Hobby would just bring in the recommendation and explain how it was done, and the commissioners would decide. And the applicant was always notified then, so the applicant could be here at that meeting if he or she or the company, whatever, wanted to discuss it further. But the issue is, again, we've been invited to participate, or the commissioners are going to be participating in this workshop on December 11. And a workshop is different than a public meeting, because in a workshop no decisions are made. Vic Barnes, it's his feeling that maybe we should record all of this. And I told him I would bring it to you and let you decide how you wanted to handle this from here on out. Now, our general workshops, we don't record, but if you want to record this, even though there won't be any decisions made at this time, but it's an investigative proceeding to get more information, and anybody from the public who does attend is certainly welcome to have some input at that time if they want to. But there will also be public meetings after that, formal public meetings that the Planning Commission will hold, where the public is invited to address some specific proposals. This workshop is intended mostly to try to decide what kind of a proposal, if any, they want to put on the table for further discussion. So I would like for this board to decide how you want to handle your participation in this workshop. If you want to have it recorded, and if so, then, because I talked to Kelly about this also, I mean, she would have to be there to record it, but even if it's recorded, I don't see the necessity of having minutes prepared based on that, since no decisions are made. But again, I'll leave this up to you. It's how you want to handle this now.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, I've also had discussion with Kelly pertaining to this matter and sent via email my recommendation to the commissioners concerning this, as well as yourself and Kelly and Brenda. In the event that all three commissioners are going to be there, which I'm assuming that is the plan based on our general discussions, I would agree with you, Clint, that it would not be my intent as a commissioner to make any decisions at that meeting. I just don't want to get us into the gray areas of the open meeting law and subsequent to the sunshine law. I spoke with Vic Barnes, and he said he would like to have the commissioners there and participate at whatever level is appropriate. So,
You say why?
well,
Have they been coming before?
because I think he views that as an opportunity for us to be in the loop and be more informed about what's going on at the workshop versus not being there or read. I haven't read anything from the previous workshop, so I have no idea what went on there, which is why I'm interested in going to the next workshop. Personally, I feel like if we err on the side of caution and convene a meeting, I agree with you that certainly we would not have to record a full set of minutes off of the discussion that occurs in that workshop. Chair is certainly open for input from the
Let me, I'll give you my 2 cents worth, Tom. I don't want to undercut the value of that board itself. That's their gig, so to speak. And I don't want to intimidate them because we're there. And think that, if one of us missed that meeting, it's a workshop, don't have to go to it. If for some reason we weren't there, then, it's good for information. But I sure don't want to. I would like to have them have free thought, get good ideas from the furthest reaches they can without being swayed by what we might think. Or if you ask a question, they're going to say, hey, Tom, you think that's not a good idea. So I'm just a little leery about it. And I sure don't want to have another meeting, another board of directors meeting every time we get together. That's not good. So just some thoughts to think about here.
My thought is that this is a board on their own, that board should decide whether they want to record it. I know Jackie Hobby has in the past recorded some meetings. I don't know if she records all of them. I think it's not a good precedent for us to set to start recording workshops. Workshops are all open to the public, but of course I know you know this, the difference between a workshop and a BOCC meeting is no action can be taken in a workshop. It's informational, discussional. You can lean towards something, feel, okay, now I know how I'm going to once we have the board meeting. I think we have enough recordings of our BOCC meeting where action actually takes place. I hate to put that extra burden on Ms. Camper. So my feeling is, since no action is taken and will never be taken, it has to be taken here. They make their recommendation to us and we either accept their recommendation, send them back for further discussion, or reject their decision, I feel that it's unnecessary for us to record it. If they choose to, that's certainly their business. That's my feeling.
Okay, thank you. Is it appropriate to make this decision via a motion, do you think, or?
Well, I think it's just
I think it's a policy
by
thing.
policy. It's something that's normal.
Yeah.
So I think we can make a statement. I don't think it should be, and that's up to them. It's their board.
I agree with you, sir. I don't think we need a motion since we're not changing or altering any ordinary procedure. I think we should just, as a consensus, at this point in time, subject to change in the future, if we feel it makes more sense in the future to do it, that we won't do it at this time. That would be my suggestion for the record.
That way it keeps it clean, and they can put out that the commissioners may or may not be here. It's not going to be a decision meeting. It's a workshop. Let them handle it.
And I've been on planning and zoning from my first day on the job, and there have been some meetings I have missed because we've had other meetings and things like that. And usually Jackie gets me up to speed on what was discussed at the meeting, and it's their meeting. It's kind of like when tourism meets or anybody else meets.
Why we have a board.
That's exactly right. That's my feeling.
Okay, thank you for your input. My stance is I believe we should, because of the nature of this workshop, not to, and I'm certainly understood and heard every word both of you said. I just want to state my position that it would be my preference to call it a meeting of the commissioners and then allow as an agenda item the workshop to completely work autonomously for themselves. And I would only say that as a matter of making sure we're on the right side of the open meetings law. I certainly am not adamant about my stance on that. I just want both of you to know that
Okay,
that's
one more
where I'm
thing,
coming
please.
from.
I think the very first meeting I had ever as a commissioner, I asked Mr. Smith to give us an overview of how the Sunshine Law and Open Meetings Record works, what we as commissioners can and cannot do when it's appropriate. Clint, do you still have that email?
I don't know if Brenda has it, but I have it on
I have it too.
on my laptop at home. I don't have it
That's
on
fine.
my
Could
iPad here.
Could I suggest maybe, because it appears to me that there's some
No, that's fine.
confusion as to how the Sunshine Law operates and when the three of us can speak and when we can't outside.
I don't want us to meet in Chappies over a beer and have to record it.
That's my point exactly, so.
Or I mean, if you accidentally met.
Well, the law allows for chance meetings or chance gathering. We just have to run into
We
each
can go
other.
to have lunch, the three
That's
of
right.
us. We just can't discuss policy and business. But I think the open meetings record law, and commonly called the Sunshine Law, is very explicit on
We
what
have
you
to be
can and
careful.
can't do. So I think it would behoove us all, including me, to read it again and make sure that we understand it so that we're not paranoid over this. I mean, we need to follow it, we need to be judicial, we need to report to our constituency, but we don't have to go crazy about it. I mean, we can send an email to each other. Here's my suggestion on the questions for the IT person. I mean, that's not a policy issue. That's certainly a discussion that we could have privately. And I understand, so if I can defer to council to kind of help us, advise us on when and when we can't meet and discuss things outside of a public meeting.
Right.
That's why I would rather avoid going to the zoning meeting, because it's their board meeting. And if they want us there for some reason, maybe we change how we do things.
When I would go, I was a fly on the wall. I very rarely opened my mouth, believe it or not, and I just listened. But I got a sense of what their mindset was and why they were thinking the way they did, and it helped me when it's time to make a decision. I understand where they're going with it rather than just being hit cold. That's why I
Well, I
went
hear
to
you,
it.
but in theory, when they come to this board with the right briefing to us and the right number of experts and people to give us different choices that they've gone through to an informed decision, that's what should be happening.
And I concur with that. Just help me to go listen to the discussions. So that's my opinion.
Good. Thank you for your input.
Sure.
I'll send you all that email I prepared last year
Thank you.
for the
Yeah, and
new
I was
commissioners.
just looking at part of the open meeting law. The open meeting law and the open records law / sunshine law really are kind of two different things.
Right.
And certainly then the open meeting law gets into the whole executive session can of worms, which we will discuss that at some point because of the upcoming interviews that the board will be conducting. So, very well. Well, thank you for your input. Then I would say it's the general consensus of the board that we do not convene a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners in connection to the workshop of the Planning Committee.
But you're all welcome to attend that meeting if you want to. And once before, when they had the a workshop on the building code issue, for example, the commissioners were there. I believe all of them were, but they just sat in the audience and didn't participate. They just listened to what was going on. That certainly is acceptable at any time.
And
I
for,
participated pretty obnoxiously.
You did participate.
and for our guest today, I would inform all of you that the workshop, Planning Commission workshop we're speaking of will be held Monday, December 11th at 1:30 in the courtroom. That's what we are referring to. Thank you.
No other attorney
And
items.
of course, that's always open to the public.
Yes, certainly open to the public, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mr. Gady,
I have nothing today.
thank you. Then
Do you expect to get paid then?
I believe we can move into our staff reports. Road and Bridge. You are up, sir. Floor is yours.
We're already 7 minutes behind, Gary.
Go fast. Hi, Gary.
You're going to be more behind before I get done. Good morning.
Well, if it's important, we don't care how long it takes.
Okay. Okay, the first thing I got is, are you familiar with where Blue Grouse Circle is out north of town, 9 miles?
I'm not.
Okay,
Off
it's
69.
correct. Yeah, it's right off of 69. It's one of the county roads that we maintain.
What's it called?
It's called Blue Grouse Circle. It's actually a road that led to Kit Shy's old home,
Okay, I know.
if you know where that's at.
Going into that, where the woods at Buck Mountain.
Yeah. Mhm. The reason I mentioned that is I had a call from an individual here about a week ago that's thinking about purchasing property right off of 69, and it's a 35-acre parcel. Anyway, they're motorcycle enthusiasts, and the question they posed to me was, if we buy this property, we intend to build within 3 years, is there a chance that if we fund this project, if they pay for the project itself, could they chip seal off of 69 200 yards onto Blue Grouse Circle?
From the intersection of those two, from the highway up.
Where the intersection is, and the next lies out.
Well, actually, it's a T intersection. It comes
Yeah.
off 69 and
Where?
it goes east on Blue Grouse Circle.
But then
Oh, and then it tees off. Yeah,
How far
there
up?
is a Y up there beyond where they want
it's
it.
not far.
So that would go straight north on that road then?
Well, actually east.
It turns and goes east.
Yeah, it comes off 69 and goes straight
Oh, it goes
east.
straight east.
And then where the fork is, it continues.
Yeah, they would like to chip seal from 69 up Blue Grouse Circle 200 yards to where they intend to put their driveway in.
So what's the downside of doing that?
I don't think there is one. It's a win-win for the county because if they chip seal it and they do it to our specs, which is what I told them, they'd have to do it to our specs and they'd have to pay for it 100%. It's just that, well, whenever we chip seal something, it lessens the maintenance we have to do on that stretch of road. So,
And they would have a subcontractor come in and do it, or would the county do it?
well, they asked me about that too, and I wouldn't be opposed to us just doing it ourselves. That way we get it done the way we want it
Is the
done.
road base good enough to do it, or is they gonna redo that too?
We'd have to do just a little bit of prep on the road base, but it mainly would be just a little bit of shaping, maybe a couple hours worth of work, if even that. And then it would be ready for chip seal.
And how could we determine what fee the county would charge them if you did it? How would we determine that? Do we get a comparative bid or something?
No, I know what we pay for our oil. I know what the rock costs us and things like that. So I could put the cost together myself.
But it's a county road. I don't think we can charge them for it.
Well,
If you're going to maintain the road, you do that.
for the initial project itself of chip sealing it, we can, since it is a county road, we could probably, we'll be fine with.
Part of the maintenance.
Yeah, if they want to, well, just like Horn, I think Horn was done that way. It got funded by, the church camp. up
Church
there.
camp.
That's how that happened,
I was
but,
going to say we have precedent in this.
yeah. And I think the county, I'm not sure if the county did that or not, but anyway, they paid for it
I think they did.
to have Horn done. So it'd be a similar situation like that, so. Myself, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it would help us out.
And I understood you said that probably a 3-year window to build, but when do you think they would like to have this done?
Well, I'm thinking,
Sometime prior to that, or right away, or
you know,
next
they
spring? Or
didn't say that one way or the other,
just
honestly.
looking for some direction?
Yeah, that was gonna be one of the contingency on whether or not they purchase the property, is if they're able to do this or not. So,
And I'm assuming then you would write up a quote, basically a presentation of the cost and the time frame, and give that to them. And
in agreeance, in an agreement that states that the county would allow them to do that, regardless of whether we supplied the labor and did it ourselves.
You can
or-
come up with, here's what the county will do, here's what we expect you to pay for.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
or to do the contract themselves to throw the chip seal down. Those are options, but you can come up with
Yeah,
something to
initially,
present to us later.
sure. Initially, what they're looking for is a commitment from the county that says that they can,
it's okay to proceed.
yeah, otherwise they're kind of on hold to purchase the property until,
That's kind of where I was going to go with it. I mean, there's a lot of contingencies out in the future. It sounds to me like they're just looking for conceptually, if we did buy the property, would you be inclined to do this at our cost? And I just conceptually would say, we've done it before. I have no issue with it as long as it meets your specs and you're satisfied with it. I'm fine.
So I move we go forward with the concept and
Tell
come
them it's
back
good.
with us and tell them we're open to negotiation.
Tell
okay.
them to go buy the land. Start paying.
So it's okay for me to write them a letter
That was a motion.
saying that they can,
Yes.
the county would be allowable.
I'll
to-
second the motion then.
Okay.
All in favor of approving the plan to go ahead with a chip seal on Bluegrass Circle? You thought 200 yards?
Mhm.
For the distance of about 200 yards. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Just friendly suggestion, can we say, provided these people buy the property and ask us to do it? Because that wasn't in the motion.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
For that.
I knew we meant that, but I want the motion to be more clear.
Make it clear.
You all right with that, sir?
Yep.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. County will support the concept of allowing them to chip seal that road.
Okay. Another thing that I'd like to visit with you about, as it is right now, whenever any one of our employees does any kind of welding in our shop, they get paid on top of their normal hourly wage, an extra $1 an hour to do that. And to me, that doesn't seem like.
Why?
Well, it's labor. Why are they getting paid extra?
Yeah.
Because it's labor intensive, it's backbreaking work, and it's almost like if you tell somebody to go into the shop, we're going to build a cattle guard, you two guys go do that, they almost see it as punishment because it's pretty labor intensive, and it takes special skills to be able to do that for one. So I agree they deserve extra money for doing this. That way they don't see it as a punishment. But I don't see that $1 an hour is enough. I think they deserve more than that. I mean, Go ahead,
I
Jay.
gotta ask a couple questions, I'm sorry.
Sure.
You hit me right off left field, I've never heard this before. I thought we get paid an hourly wage to do our job, and I recognize that this is over and above. That's something. Do we have anything in our procedures? Do we have anything, job descriptions? Does the procedure manual allow for this? is it budgeted? I mean, I just have a lot of questions that I mean, you're just hitting me off of left field. You know, if you go grade this road, I'm going to pay you differently than I'm going to do if you weld this thing over here. I'm just surprised to hear this.
Well, it was that way when I came on board, and
Okay.
we just continued that. I didn't see anything wrong with it because it does take special skills to be able to
I'm not
weld.
arguing with it. I'm just
Yeah.
you're just hitting me out of left field that someone's getting paid extra during their 8 hours of work that day or 7 hours of work that day for doing a different task within their job. And I just didn't know. Do we have any documentation or anything on that?
I don't know that there is or not. I'd have to look.
Okay,
So-
let's shore that up. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
opposed to the concept, but let's, if you don't, from your HR position, from my HR position, can we talk about that so I can get it into?
Before you do that, I'm the rep. Let's talk about what big picture, what we need to recommend for certain things. I'm sure that there is there was no need for a full-time welder being hired, and that's a different category of skill, and it costs money. And so I'm sure that in the past, and this is my experience having been here and been through some of that some of these guys were hired because they could weld, and when they do that, that's understandable how that evolved. That may or may not be in the job description on anybody. I can't imagine requiring anybody you hire to have welding skills as part of the deal, other than if you wanted to get some specific guys and get a group that you could count on. And right now you probably have that. You've got some guys you know are pretty good welders probably.
Sure, they're the ones we put on those
We can always
tasks like
get
that.
them, and so they get tasked separately, and that kind of gets them off of, well, I really want to be a road grader guy, or whatever. So let's talk about it and come back with a proposal that makes some sense. And
Sure.
Are there any other jobs? I mean, if we ask them to paint a fence, do they get paid something different? Are there anything else besides welding where these employees get paid something over and above their regular salary?
No, this is the only one.
Only welding? Okay. So we need a welding policy is what we need.
And it doesn't, at a dollar an hour, it doesn't amount to very much money. If you got one guy in the shop and he's welding for 8 hours straight, we're only talking an extra 8 hours a day.
$8.
Or $8 a day that he's
I
getting.
get it.
Yeah, so.
And you'd like to give them more.
Yeah, I would, because
So why
I've
not-
been
Let's
in
make a
it.
recommendation to us and let
Okay.
us decide.
We'll have to have you
You
come
can look at it from
Sure.
the Road and Bridge, I'll look at it from HR, and you look at it as a chairman, and let's get a policy in place, and if it's appropriate, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Now, before we leave that, let me interject here as a member of the board. As Jay indicated, I am also surprised that we're even having this discussion. I'm a welder, so believe me, I understand what it is to spend 6 or 7 hours under a welding helmet. I'm assuming we're talking about employees that are normally housed in the county shop. Is that true or not?
No, these are operators.
You would bring an operator off of the road to come in and weld?
Like, for instance, it's in the wintertime, and, we're limited to what we can do. It's like saying, why don't you and you start building this cattle yard? And they,
or repairing a blade.
and they're gonna go, well, why are we having to do this while the other guys are just washing windows on their blade or cleaning it? Something where they're not having to, do that type of work,
Well, I would think probably because they're employed for the county and the county needs the work done. That's
Well-
on the surface.
Well, that's one way to look
Now,
at it.
I'm
but-
certainly not opposed to this discussion and, subsequently dealing with some kind of a policy, but,
Well,
Well, I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
too, Tom. I mean, I'd see it on both sides. Both
I'm
ways.
kind of concerned, like, if the sheriff tells one of his deputies, you need to move this bale of hay from point A to point B, and I'll give you an extra $1 an hour if you do, and maybe the sheriff's not a good example, but any other division.
Shannon moves
I don't like
himself.
the idea of, hey, here's something a little outside, and I'll give you extra money to do it, without some kind of policy in place.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to come back, so let's not waste any more neurons here.
Okay, as
Seriously,
long as
because
if this is the only
I agree, it
policy.
has to be, and it sounds like a precedent has been set, and we got to deal with it. And whether we deal with it by saying no longer, and anybody who gets to be a welder, he just sucks it up. That can be a recommendation back. Just depends on what we find. Get into the nuts and
Know if
bolts.
this is being done in any other departments.
yeah, I don't either. Based on my experience in both the mining industry and the welding industry, I'm surprised that we're approaching that. Let me just put it that
Well,
way.
let me give you an example, and I'll try and make this brief. Where I came from, we had a crane. Nobody was willing to take on the responsibility to operate that crane. We built bridges, steel structures, things like that. My background from working in the oil field, I had some experience running equipment where I was able to train on that crane and run it. And there is a lot of responsibility that goes with operating that crane. You're responsible for everybody that's on the ground, their health, their safety, and things like that. Well, they paid me extra a month to run that crane, and it wasn't a lot. It was like $100. But it's a similar situation with the welding. I mean, it was a skill set that nobody else possessed.
Well, see, and I can understand if we don't have a big workforce. We can't afford to hire a skill set that's welder only, let them sit there half a year not doing anything.
Well, and I could have been one of the individuals that said, I don't want the responsibility, I'm not going to do it. And then we would have been left without a crane operator. And whereas I took on that, and I did get paid a little bit extra for it. And nobody else were envious or argumentative because I got paid the extra money because they turned the responsibility away. They didn't want to do it. And you can't really go to somebody and say, you run that crane or you're not going to work here anymore. Or you go in the shop and weld or you're not going to work here anymore. So I can see both sides to that.
Yeah, if we, in the real world, this certainly would come up right off the bat. We're going to pay somebody extra to be the welder. What kind of certification in the job description? And I'm sure nobody in that shop's been certified as a welder from the sounds of it.
One guy
It
is.
could be, but yeah, as a member of the board, I'm certainly willing to continue this discussion before we make any decisions. I have a little intrepidation about that because to me, if you're working in a county shop and you know how to weld, that probably would be one of your casually appointed jobs. But
Well, you don't charge them. You don't give them $1 an hour if you've got something, a little crack. Somebody goes over and he gets on the welder for a few minutes. You're talking about a project.
Yeah, mostly a project. Like
Yeah.
we try and save money by building our own cattle cars. So
Well, you didn't expect this, did you? You were asking for an extra $1.
that's okay. That's all right. I don't mind a
Don't
challenge.
tip your hand now. You better get your act together on
You know-
how many dollars we really think it's worth and why.
Yeah,
Come
sure.
back.
And
Okay.
with respect to what you said about the money, certainly we couldn't afford to go hire a welder for $1 an hour. So I'm not
Sure.
quibbling about the money thing. It's almost the whole concept.
Setting the
Process
precedent.
and
So
Well, I don't even
what's
care about
there.
setting a precedent. Precedents can
Well,
be
it's already
broken
been
all the
set.
time.
So,
But
Yeah, it's been that way, and it's accepted in the workplace. People don't have a problem with it. The guys that aren't doing the welding,
Right.
they don't
They're not
mind missing
giving
out
it
on
to
that
you.
$1 an hour. Yeah, they don't, because of the work that's involved and things like
Bring
that.
a proposal to us and let's talk about it.
All right, sure.
okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if you were to do that and decide that you were going to do something like that, that's going to affect all of us then?
It could, and that's, I guess,
That's
what.
why
My
we're here.
deputies, they do IT work all the time. I mean, I know my job description doesn't say anything about repairing the sprinkler system and
That was the whole
building out.
point. You're right.
And so,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I'm just asking, so if you do that, then that's going to have to go countywide. Am I assuming that correctly?
Well, that would
And now-
certainly be
Not
part of the
necessarily.
consideration. I would think that if we approach this as more of a project-oriented thing, rather than hiring an individual to come in and build a cattle guard, we'd like to request X number of dollars extra pay per hour to have our people do it. Now, it'd be just like this chip seal thing. I mean, any project you could think of in any division, if it's out of their ordinary day scope of work, then we would be kind of opening ourselves up to say, well, where do we draw that line?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking,
Yeah.
because then if we do that, then one of my
Right.
folks, we have something that has to be done. I mean, that's why I have other duties as assigned in all job descriptions.
Right.
Because I don't want them coming back to you saying, hey, listen, I did this and the sheriff isn't paying me for that.
Right.
That would be the
That's
point.
that's all I'm worried about.
That's what we have to have him come back and describe. Well, how are we going to set this up? Is it project? And it sounds like it is. It's the big project that matters. And so that may or may not apply in the other departments. You may have projects that come up all the time and you need a special skill. Maybe it would apply.
It's a lot bigger than that, and I agree with the sheriff. And that's why I said, is the sheriff, if you ask someone to move a bail, hey, you're going to come ask me for an extra buck. I mean, this is a policy that the county needs to consider. If it was done on their own time and you paid them separately, I'm going to be okay with it. But I'm kind of like, I'm kind of like at a miss for why we're paying someone during hours time who has skills to do something. I'm willing to discuss it. I'll keep my mind open, but I'm really concerned about what it's going to be for every other division within the county. So why don't you bring it back to us and let us talk about it. We'll get Ms. Hobby in here, Donna Hobby in here to talk about the repercussions of to the other divisions in the county, and let's see what we can do. And I concur with you. I mean, if we're asking them to do a project, maybe it's different than, let's talk about it. Does that sound fair?
We had a question or a comment? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that it's been that way for the last 29 years that I know of. It's not something that's new. It's been that way for a long time.
So, I mean, it's worked. And I don't know if the other departments within the county have known about it, but I guess I haven't heard.
Well, they do now, and so let's get our act together and come back. We're just wasting some time.
Sure. Okay.
Let's do this properly. Thank you. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Okay, we're at the time of the year, we've only got a month left in the year, and I've identified that we're going to have a surplus of about $189,000 in the Road and Bridge account. And one of the areas I looked at that I feel like we could upgrade as far as equipment is our backhoe in Wetmore. And the reason being is it's not front wheel assist. It doesn't have a mechanical thumb on it. We had to deal with flood situations over the summer, debris removal in the creek and things like that. I felt like we ought to have a thumb on that backhoe, and it would be nice to have it be a front wheel assist because I've seen it down in the creek and trying to maneuver it only on two-wheel drive. And in order to do that, I thought the best way to approach this is to take our backhoe, which is front wheel assist, has a mechanical thumb on it up here in Westcliff, and transfer it down to Wetmore, and then possibly us look at getting a new one. Just upgrading ours, which we use quite a bit for culvert work and things like that. So what I did was I went out and got bids on a backhoe, and then
you and I are going to meet soon, I hope, today or tomorrow, it's depending on schedule. But we've talked about this in the board already in the past, so we do have options that we need to have you bring to us, and we need to, in fact, make sure that all the money that we have allocated to improve roads and do the roads is spent to do exactly that, which this falls into that category. So we need to get those kinds of proposals in front of us, so we'll consider them.
And maybe I don't remember correctly, I thought in the 2018 budget, did we not have a backhoe budgeted, a new backhoe?
no, actually it was for this year. The items that were budgeted for next year is the truck and trailer and a motor grader. Since we were going to have a surplus for this year, before the end of the year, we were hoping to purchase the backhoe out of this year's budget so that we could utilize money out of this year's budget for that purchase.
So rather than trade in an old one, I'm thinking Rusty could use it at the landfill. And he just said he thinks that might be a reasonable idea in a nice way.
We did talk about that, and I got a trade-in value on our backhoe, the one down at Wetmore, and it's only $9,500. And my thoughts were just to transfer it over to the landfill where Rusty could utilize it versus trading it in.
Great sense.
So one of my questions is, what was your plan to do with the backhoe that's down there now?
Yeah, I'd like to see it go to the landfill so that Rusty can use it out there.
So what is the actual cost of the new backhoe? And did you follow our procedure and get the bids and all that stuff we need to do? Good. That was Ms. Hobby's been involved in knowing that. It's a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, I
making sure the bids have been done properly and we followed procedure. That's all I'm concerned about.
I spoke with Donna yesterday about the funds, and she says they're there. And these are the bids that I got for the outright price on the backhoes.
Same class backhoe.
Pardon?
Same class of backhoe.
Yeah.
What size?
The one we've got right now is a 410
John Deere.
L, or I mean D.
The one with four-wheel drive?
The one we've got in place right now, I think it's 410D is the model number and the size.
Going to Wetmore.
That's the one that would go to Wetmore.
Remind me of the surplus you have at the moment. The surplus.
Oh, one, based on the projected expenses between now and the end of the year, it should be right at 190,000.
Okay, so you got plenty of money to do this.
And what are you anticipate, what size are these backhoes? Comparable to a 410 or 510?
Well, we've actually got a John Deere right now that we're demoing, and it's a 410L, so it's the same size as what we've got now. I've got the specs on all three of them.
So this one for 113 is a 410L?
Mm-hmm. And the cat is a 430F, and then I'm not sure what the case is. But I've checked out all three machines, and I think even though the John Deere's a little bit more money than the case, I didn't care for the case at all. The John Deere, I used to be a cat man. I demoed a cat a couple of years ago, and by far it was the best machine of the three over the John Deere and the case. But
So
now that I've seen,
the case is is it a super case, super 580,
Yeah.
super something or other?
yeah, it is.
But it,
I don't see the model on here. But when I went to these three,
not a lot of cost difference. They're only $3,000 or $4,000 between each of them, apparently.
yeah, it's a 590 is what they call it.
590.
No, what I did was I went to all three of them and I told them how I wanted it spec'd, and I wanted it to be the same size, horsepower, and things like that, so it would be apples to apples that we were comparing. And these are the quotes that they come up with.
So, of the three, I think, in my opinion, the price of all three of them are so close that, and we don't have to take the lowest bid because they're not identical machines. Of the three, which one do you feel will serve you the best and that you would recommend?
By far the John
John
Deere.
Deere.
The Deere.
Yeah.
What would be the next bigger size of a John Deere?
Then that 410, I'm not certain. I know based on the horsepower of these machines, the sizes and things like that, we don't want to get too big based on the type of work we're going to use it for. So, but offhand, I don't know what the next size bigger would be. But I know based on our work and what we've done in the past,
Clamshell bucket or just a straight up bucket?
it's just got a regular front bucket, but
Thumb on
it's got a hydraulic thumb versus mechanical.
So, if I may, I'd like to move that we authorize expenditure before the end of the year of $113,900 plus or minus, if there's a small amount of difference in there, to allow Road and Bridge to purchase the Four Rivers equipped John Deere backhoe and the surplus backhoe that'll be replaced, be assigned to landfill.
Or is that the one that's going to Wetmore? You're going to
Yeah.
take this backhoe to Wetmore, and you're going to take that Wetmore backhoe to the landfill.
Correct. Yeah. We're
So
just kind of
I know that's what you meant.
That's fine, thank you. I meant, when I said surplus, I meant when it's all said and done, we're gonna have an extra one. So
I
that's
second
where,
that motion. Been moved and seconded that we allow Road and Bridge to pursue the purchase of the John Deere backhoe from Four Rivers Equipment and then transfer backhoe from the Westcliff shop to the Wetmore shop and move the Wetmore backhoe out to the landfill. Any further discussion about that? Ms. Hobby, you okay? We're good with this transaction? Yes, sir?
I have a question about that. I'm highly in favor of replacing the Wetmore backhoe for this junk. It belongs in the landfill, probably.
Rusty will put it where it belongs.
bury it.
However, the other question I had is, since we have $190,000 in surplus coming to the end of the year. Has there been any thought by the road and bridge people or the commissioners with regard to perhaps supplementing road base on the roads so they could actually be graded as opposed to just grading up boulders every time they drive around? At this point with $189,000, seems like that might be a good solution to resolving some of the road problems.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we're looking into buying an extra truck and trailer for next year, so that we've got 4 versus 3. So when we're hauling material for these more distant places, you know, at the end of Oak Creek Grade, Copper Gulch, places like that, we're able to get more material up there in the same amount of time versus 3 trucks. So we are looking into doing things
Well,
like that.
I'm talking about before the end of the year, before like the wheels start falling off stuff driving down Reed's Hill there. You're familiar with Reed's Hill, and the washboard is about 9 inches deep.
off the
Yeah, I'm just gonna say-
Well, no, the
I wanna
question is very pertinent because it's
Well,
spending the rest of the
I
funds.
want to
for this
respect
year.
your opinions, and certainly dealing with road-based issue has nothing to do with this backhoe purchase, so let us finish this,
Okay.
and then we can move on. Your point has been heard and well taken by myself, for sure.
Yeah, and that's a
And I'm
fact.
assuming Mr. Hyde is, or,
Yeah, and I understand what you're
I
saying.
was just questioning whether it would be appropriate to use the money that's left over from this year to do that
Okay.
this year.
all right, thank you. Let's move on. We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of purchasing this backhoe and transferring the other 2 backhoes as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Aye, myself, sorry.
And this is
Motion carries.
purchase order that'll need to be signed.
And don't bury it.
Okay, what else, sir?
I gotta get.
Yeah, we'll deal with
Okay.
that. Anything else?
Last year, this time of year, and it's my understanding that it was approved by the commissioners that were in place at the time. This was prior to Jay. But anyway, the Road and Bridge Department was issued, the employees were issued $50 gift cards that were from the Valley Ace Hardware.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, before anything like that was done again, I wanted to bring it before the 3 commissioners that are in place now and see if you're still on board with that or if that's something that is going to be allowable to do again.
How many employees?
17,
Gift cards from whom?
Valley Ace Hardware. It was a $50 gift card that was purchased with the Road and Bridge budget to be given to the Road and Bridge employees. And there's 17 of them.
You already did it?
Pardon? No,
It
we
was
haven't done it.
authorized, or?
No,
was
this
it?
is something that was authorized last year and done.
Oh, you're
But
talking.
before it's done this year, it needs to be authorized again, or
It's a
I'm just not
budgeted
gonna.
item.
Pardon?
It's a budgeted item.
Well, I don't know that it was a budgeted item necessarily, but it was money that was spent out of Road and Bridge.
Just because I'm with this question, this is money that ACE is giving to our employees.
No,
We
we're giving
purchased
Ace to buy a card to get them a gift.
$50 gift
Gift
card.
card.
So
Christmas
they can go
gift
in and
card.
choose whatever they want for $50.
A bonus.
Pretty much, yeah. But I think it's something that needs to be addressed every year before it's actually, I wasn't gonna go do it without
Right.
getting the okay from the commission.
Well, I tell you, as much as I'm in favor of rewarding employees for doing a great job, I don't know how we could take one division. Rusty has somebody once say, give me 1 second. I don't know how we could do one division that we reward for a great job and other divisions that have done a great job in their areas and not reward them also. Now, I know
Comments,
we
Rusty?
do give,
I'm sorry.
we do give a, go ahead.
We had in the past called it a safety award.
Right.
That landfill,
Okay.
and that it was a safety to get them to be safer.
Okay.
What do other departments do? Do you have any other incentive things like that
Yes.
for anybody else?
No,
Sheriff, you got anything?
because I don't trip on my desk.
Don't we give all of our employees?
Well, everybody got the dedicated service
Everybody got
across
a
the
dedicated
board.
service across the board.
But this is more of a safety award if they didn't have workman comp or accidents.
That makes sense.
Kind of a combination
Sorry.
gift and safety award, sort of.
Yeah, that's what,
Okay.
because we do have the dedicated service award for everyone that is not elected. But this was kind of a safety.
I did hear something about a safety award that was in place at one time, and
Well, back in the day, they were coats. I mean, it's evolved to, you know, they were like $200 or $300 coats down to like 100, down to different, you know, there is no right or wrong.
Okay.
Just,
Prince? Go ahead.
We've done that a little bit, something similar to that too, Gary.
Okay.
Sheriff's Office the last couple of years, if there's a little bit of money left, because, and we do a uniform type, because they don't really get much of a uniform allowance, and so we've done something similar to that too.
and there was some kind of a boot allowance or.
Yeah, and if they have an accident, something happens and they're unsafe, then they don't get it.
Oh, I see what you're
Yes.
That
saying.
was
Yeah,
just
the
for the
claims we
employees
had
that were
that
safe
they
throughout the
didn't get.
year.
Am I hearing, Ms. Hobby, that we've had no workers' comp claims? We've had no injuries?
and I would question the 17 at that department. I think I've made a few claims.
That would be deserving of
How's
it.
that?
You're saying maybe not all 17 would qualify for a safety award
Yeah,
based
I
on
would
claims.
say there would not be a full 17, there would not be everyone.
Let's, in the interest of discussion, we'll put your lawyer hat on, Jay, just for a
Oh, well,
minute.
I don't
and
wear my hat in
talk
here.
policy here.
I don't wear my hat in here. Sorry, we have an attorney.
No, what I meant by that is you brought up setting the precedents with policies and that kind of thing. So really what we're talking about is how our departments spend their year-end funds that's left over in buckets of whatever. And I think that you know, from a Board of Commissioners point of view, we ought to make a decision. Do you want to allow them within a certain amount of discretionary funds that are left, whether it's $3,000 or 200 or whatever it is, the flexibility not to come to us and you know, to question their ability to make decisions on who ought to be rewarded and who ought to not be rewarded, because that's something we hire these guys to do. That we, you know, because there's been other pots, it sounds like it's been used for years and years. The people have done that in the past, but maybe we've not had something in writing that says the county really thinks that that's a good thing to use some year-end funds with, which I do personally, just from my own point of view. We could talk about an actual decision to be made here at a bigger scope. And I don't know if it's appropriate to do that right now because this is Gary's time, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, I would certainly like to see it be a budgeted item.
Yep.
If it's going to be a safety award at the end of the year or whenever it is, let's get that in the budget.
Something that's part of your budget.
I certainly appreciate you coming before the board to want to pursue this. Again, you know, to say, well, if it's a safety award and if not everybody's eligible, then I would expect the supervisor to say 13 of you are eligible and 4 of you aren't, or whatever those numbers are, and that's something that you would have to work out.
Is that what
If
you're
it's
on
not
about?
going to be a safety
Yeah,
award
that's-
and it's just going to be a year-end bonus, then that's different. But let's call it what it is. And
Maybe it's
let's
a
get,
combination of the two. Somebody gets more.
you know, let's get something so that we don't have this
And I didn't
discussion
realize
every
it was
year.
safety award either. I should
Yeah,
have.
that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
So-
sir. You had indicated a comment.
Well, I was just thinking, in another life, I had an occupational safety and health consulting firm, helping especially larger industries comply with some of the components of OSHA. And it's certainly not unusual, in fact, proved to be a very good incentive to have safety award programs for hazardous jobs. And I would think that it'd be entirely appropriate to have that particular classification if it's tied to actual safety.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Based on the conversations we're having and the tradition that we've had, I'd like to move that we approve up to $50 per individual road and bridge employee, up to $50 gift certificate from ACE, and the road and bridge supervisor's discretion on to whom that should be given.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to allow Gary's request for up to 17 gift cards for his employees at the amount of $50 apiece. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Another topic, our Christmas party. And since Rusty's here, maybe he can help out with this. Last year, it was held at Tony's Mountain Pizza for the Road and Bridge Department in the landfill. And I think funding for that Christmas party was partially dealt with by the sale of scrap iron that we've collected over the year. And anyway, my thoughts were to go ahead and continue that way, to have a Christmas party and at least partially fund it with the sale of scrap iron for the Road and Bridge and the landfill employees. And I wanted to bring that up to you three and see if you were okay with that.
Do you have a date for that?
16th of this month, Saturday.
16th?
Where do you have that?
Pardon?
Where is that held?
Tony's Mountain Pizza.
Oh, Tony's, I'm sorry, you did say that, I apologize. I don't have any issues with that.
What do you mean partially funded? Is the rest,
Well, I don't think that we sell in the
right, so
the
the
part
rest
that
is just individual or how?
No, I think it was paid for by the Road and Bridge Fund. I think that it came to $600 last year, and I'm not certain how much of the iron sales funded that. But anyway, I know that we've sold some iron so far, and I think we received a check for almost $300 for it. So at least half of it's going to be funded by
So
that.
$300, you gotta get the small pizzas.
Ms. Hobbs?
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
Ordinarily, you guys manage to cover it between the trips, because we kind of have a spreadsheet that we take off the guys' pay and the fuel and the cost of the equipment to run down there, because I
Run
don't
down
want
where, I'm sorry.
to the
Iron
yard
Works,
or whoever,
It's in Penrose.
and we
Bonnie's
subtract it off.
Crushers.
Yeah.
I think that's
And
right.
if it's $1,000 they garnered, usually they have like the $700 to pay. Is ordinarily they come out where it's no tax dollars on it. Barbie makes kind of a spreadsheet and we can show the public that
How is the balance covered again, Don?
that it's covered.
By
Make enough
by
on the
just
scrap.
that-
Oh,
that
okay.
it's made enough. And a lot of guys, I think when there were years that it wasn't, that you would take from the landfill, or they would, like, let's say Scott had something from the house, they'd all bring it and take it through and make that party happen, but there was no
Okay.
taxpayer dollars on that.
So one way or another, it's funded by
I
other
have
expenses
no issues
besides.
with continuing this.
Okay.
General consensus?
Yep.
That's fine.
And you three are invited. If
Oh
that-
shoot, now we're gonna have to call a meeting to order.
You know, so we recording what time?
We're gonna have like a half
Have a
an
Merry
hour,
Christmas.
so to speak, from 5 to 6, and the meal's at 6. It'd be great if you guys can attend, but
And of course, that, press.
This is great.
Okay, very good, sir. General consensus of the board to allow that Christmas party to occur and be funded through whatever means, including the scrap iron sale that
Just
you...
don't call it a holiday party.
Okay, good. Anything else?
like I said,
By golly, thank you.
You sure, Harry?
I think so.
We'll revisit the whole issue of the extra pay, and you'll bring that back to us at some
Yeah.
point.
Sounds good.
Good.
As our friend over here said, spending the money for Road and Bridge, I think we've made a major commitment in our budget to do exactly that. So hopefully, your specific issue and all of our issues will be considerably better. I didn't want to just drop what you
No,
brought
that's
up.
okay.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I'm gonna be meeting with Gary over in the next week or two. We're gonna come up with there's gonna be a whole new road and bridge plan.
That's
going on.
wonderful. I'm
And we'll
sure
make
that
it
you guys are gonna address it. I didn't have any concerns about
And
that.
I-
My concern was just because the money happens to be here at the end of the year.
Right.
Shouldn't we use it for that?
But we're going to open a lot of money to Road and Bridge that hadn't been available before in the 2018 budget, for the whole purpose of what our constituency did was vote for a mill levy for more money to fix Road and Bridge,
Right.
and we're going to use it for that. So
That's great.
hopefully your road.
You're gonna get tired of good roads around.
Other
I don't think that
input,
can happen.
other input,
But thank you guys all for your.
other input from Mr. Hyde, please. If not, thank you, sir. We'll get to your, that's all right.
Wait,
Let's
hang on.
let,
There's a lady in the back.
for Mr. Hyde or no?
Yeah,
That's what I was
just
asking
comment
for.
that was made on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. One of the things that has been said a couple of times now is that this scrap iron isn't taxpayer money. It is taxpayer money. It's a refund of the taxpayers' money. If the scrap iron belongs to the county and they're selling it, then it is. I think it's a great idea to use it for a Christmas party because the personnel in the county need and deserve to have a party, you know.
Sure.
So I'm not having an issue on that. But if the scrap is personal scrap or is it?
In a sense, it is personal scrap because CDOT, for instance, brings material over. They wouldn't have to bring it to the Road and Bridge Department. They could allow me to come pick it up. So actually, that scrap does, in a sense, belong to me and the other employees of the Road and Bridge Department. And the Road and Bridge Department has brought materials in, or not the Road and Bridge Department, but
Employees.
the employees have
Right.
brought scrap material in. So in a sense, it is personal material, not necessarily taxpayer material.
Okay,
So-
that sounds good. But either way, I'm for it. There is just a big emphasis on it's
Yeah.
not tax.
It's not
Well,
clean.
I mean, in a sense it is, but it isn't. I mean, it could be my personal, it could be a place where I'm storing stuff that I receive from CDOT, and then I sell it to pay for the Christmas order.
In effect, it becomes a county asset.
Pardon?
In which case, we'll charge you for storage.
Okay, I'll donate a little bit back for storage.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Gary.
Keep up the great work.
Too bad. See you, Kelly.
You think Reed Hill needs a little work?
Yeah, start picking up the car parts off the side of
I have a
it.
friend that
At this time, we'll move on to the landfill for your report.
in 2 weeks.
Much scrap iron you got, Rusty?
A lot.
Good morning.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Kelly. I didn't get a report in because I was on vacation. But I did go to CCI and went to this meeting on small landfills.
And thank you for doing that, too. Outstanding.
And if you look back here to whatever it is, page 4, the solid green circles mean landfills are in compliance, and we happen to be one of those landfills.
Congratulations.
Way to go.
Us and looks like Cheyenne County are the only two, and these other landfills are working to be as good as we are. They just haven't accomplished it yet.
The big red X.
Means they're in trouble. And the arrows pointing up means that they're working on improving. And so is what the CDPHE is going to do is they're going to drill 3 groundwater monitoring wells at our landfill. They're going to fund those 3 wells. And then they're going to sample those wells for 2 quarters. And they're going to pay for that. This is really unusual for CDPHE.
I was going to ask.
And then,
Why?
if they don't find anything, then there won't be any sampling for 5 years. But after that 5 years, then they will sample again and pay for that.
Good.
So this is a great thing for our landfill that they're handling all that.
Is this a prelude to maybe expanding our landfill towards the east?
If
Will
we
this help us get the approval to do that?
Sure. Yeah, have those groundwater monitoring wells would be a great plus for us
That's what I thought.
if we expanded.
Okay. That's
It'd be a great thing.
And speaking of your
congratulations on this.
those groundwater monitoring wells, page 5, the map with the yellow. The number indicated outside of the
Right.
circle is the number of groundwater wells to be installed by CDPHE.
Right.
So
We have 0 now, and they're gonna install 3.
3. Okay, I must have misunderstood. I thought you said 2, but we're looking at 3.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's great.
What about all the other counties that aren't indicated here at all?
These are just the small landfills.
70, 300.
Yeah, basically under 20 tons a day.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
The larger landfills still, they're still paying for everything that comes up. So they're really helping us out, these smaller landfills,
Good.
because we just don't have the revenue.
Sure.
So that's a huge bonus.
Yeah, there's definitely some counties that are in trouble, the southeastern portion of the state. So.
And they did say too, CDPHE charges $125 an hour to read anything we send them. And so it sounds to me like they're going to discontinue that for the smaller landfills also.
Good.
Aren't we using cardboard basically to pay that? If I remember. Yeah.
So that's a huge step.
Of the 4 or 5 that have indicated through this report that they're planning on closing, is there an underlying trend why that is? They just can't meet these requirements?
Right.
Or?
Yeah, they just can't be in compliance with the state for one reason or another.
What's their options going to be if they close?
Yeah, where do they take it?
Transfer. They'll have to transfer it. And like they were saying, there was quite a few commissioners in this meeting, and they were saying that these small landfills like that, they just don't have the revenue. Some of them are only open 2 or 3 days a week, and they're just having a hard time functioning, trying to stay in compliance because it is expensive. Even the engineering, design, and operating plan that every landfill has to have, which has to be engineered, is really expensive just to get that accomplished. Mm-hmm. So,
could you remind us on what your projected lifespan of our current, as it sits?
Might as well just say 6 years.
6 years. So
where we're at right now.
Right.
6 years more.
Right. And it's going to take 10 years to get federal approval?
No, we could probably get permitted in a couple of years, probably, if we got started on it. The problem is that the permitting, just for the engineering part of it, for that expansion that we wanted to do, that I went in 2010 with CDPHE anyway, just for the engineering then was $150,000.
Is that something that we could get a grant for? Like, is that something that possibly GOLA would fund, or Elkamar or somebody else would help fund?
I don't know, but we could sure look into that and see.
I think we just
what they could
6
do.
years is a flash in the eyes, and it's going to take
It
a long
is.
time. I think we
It
have
really
to
is.
get started
Good
on
point.
it.
We don't have any planning yet.
No,
Looking forward.
We need to get moving.
No, we've just been waiting for an answer, waiting for somebody to come up with a decision to say, we're going to expand, or we're going to have a transfer station, or we're going to, whatever we're going to do.
But nobody's proposed anything yet to anybody.
And that proposal will probably come from this board, correct?
I have all the paperwork, the maps, I have everything that I did in 2010, and I gave it to the last commissioners anyway. I can get that information to the 2 new commissioners, and then we can hash it out and come up with something.
Can I suggest in the next, maybe right after the beginning of the year, we set a workshop?
That'd be
Bring
great.
this down. Let's start a real plan on how to do something. I don't want 4 years to go by and we're sitting there going, wait a minute, now what? And we're going to rush to do a transfer station, which may or may not be the right thing. I mean, I really like to hear your input, but I'd like to have all the commissioners up to speed, recommendations, and we've got to get moving on this.
I agree.
6 years is not enough time.
I agree.
You can find out what the process is and how much time. You just mentioned a couple of years to get a permit through. We just need to really understand what it is, what we got to do. We got to get started.
Right.
When,
Yeah, we just need a decision on which way we want to go.
How many employees at the landfill, man?
Or
4.
Brenda, could you just put a tickler on there at the beginning of January sometime to set up a workshop for landfill? Thank you, ma'am. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Good job.
What else shaking like
Like
a
it.
leaving?
yeah, we got some real news here. Our loader needs a transmission. I had Four Rivers Equipment, which is John Deere, come up and do a diagnostics on that loader, and they decided that it needs a transmission. And this transmission is gonna have to go to John Deere to get the transmission put in. So we're talking $40,000. And that was just a call that John Deere called back to Road and Bridge and let the mechanics know that figure. But I will talk to John Deere and get a written estimate on what it's really going to be.
But you're pretty confident it needs to go out.
is
Right.
it broke down flat out now? Or
No,
is it
it's still running, but it's just a day-to-day thing when it's actually going to seize, and
This
that's
has
going to
been
be
a
it.
nightmare for
Yeah.
quite a while.
What's the make and model?
It's a 644H John Deere.
Have you looked at your budget? Where would it, do you have any money in your budget to pay for this? Or
No.
you have to
Part
do
of
a
it, or anything?
transfer from
What you
general
got?
fund?
As the end of October, there was only 15,000 left in our budget for this year, and so we still have November and December, so that's going to be gone.
I'm sorry, sir. Is it out of commission at the moment?
No, it's still running,
Okay.
but it's just a day-to-day thing, and when it's going to finally. Mechanic actually says, well, when it goes, it'll be down in your pit, because that's usually where it happens. So
You have to figure out how to drag it up.
You're right.
Do you know what year it is? That
It's
loader?
a 99.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we have much choice. I think we're going to have to do it. We may have to take it out of general fund, transfer money to landfill. I mean, this is just part of
What are you going to
living.
do when it's gone? How do you handle it without the loader?
We rely on Road and Bridge a lot.
So they'll bring a loader out there?
Yeah, over in their pit they have a Komatsu, which is comparable size of our loader. And we actually put a hook on the front of it so we can dump our roll-off container in the mornings. And so that loader actually has that on it too.
So we could make a decision to take it down at any point, and you'll be able to handle it.
Right.
And the idea would be to get it, now, this Christmas season's probably, is it a real busy time for you, Rusty?
It's busy, but it's a good time of the year. We're going to put the engine in our compactor. Probably, hopefully we can get it down to Road and Bridge this week. We have the engine sitting down there. All we have to do is pull the other one out and put the new one in. So
And you already have that.
we have the engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just need to take a look at the budget and figure out what we got and make a decision. You need to help and get with Gary. And
Yeah, I've talked to
let's
Gary.
see what a good time to do it would be.
I talked to Gary, and he said he'd help us with as far as borrowing that loader, so we'll be okay. And when our compactor's down, we have an old dozer out there that we'll bring down in the pit and use it to compact the trash, which it really doesn't compact the trash. Runs it over and flattens it out.
Right.
So the quicker we can get the compactor back, the better.
And Four Rivers can start on a transmission and finish it timely this time of year.
Yeah, but I need to really get a written statement.
We just need to
Get something from
get all the
figured out.
figures
Sure.
down so we know.
If I can ask Don a question. If landfill doesn't have the money in their budget, what would be the most appropriate place to fund this if we need to transfer money into landfill?
And actually, whether Rusty had money or no, it would be a capital outlay project. So
Okay.
it would always come out of the capital,
Okay.
that kind of money.
We have money in the budget.
Mm.
Okay. When does this need to get done now?
I thought we would try to go ahead and get the compactor finished first.
Okay.
And as soon as we get it back, and then send the loader down.
You need to put together a kind of suggested schedule based upon what you find out when things can be done, and let's come back and make a decision. We can move the money if appropriate. How much, you'll have a better feel for how much.
Right, right.
Well, obviously, this is not a luxury. This is not a pizza party. This is something that, and I don't mean that in any negative way for the pizza party.
You have a flair for the obvious.
I do that a lot. You know, if you don't tell the judge every word, he won't know. Okay, so the bottom line is, it has to be done. It's going to be a capital outlay. Is it appropriate at this point for us to approve that, or do you want to come back next time you address the board and we approve it at that time? How would you like to handle it? Because we don't know the exact figure, do we? We just
No, we don't. I don't know the exact figure. We're just. They said 20 for the engine, 20 to install.
Okay.
So we're thinking 40,000, but that
For the transmission.
can be either way.
I got it. So,
You said engine, but you mean transmission.
Transmission, excuse me, right?
okay, so maybe we ought to wait to
I think he needs to come back with
get a firm offer and, you know, what it's going to be, and then we could approve it.
Okay.
And they'll probably still end up ballparking to some degree because
Oh, yeah.
they're not going
Right.
to
Make sure we get enough money.
Right.
Do we transport the machine down? or
Yeah,
do they
we
come
will.
get it?
We'll load it and haul it. Or road and bridge will.
Okay.
And it's a good time of year to get these kind of things done because it is slower. You sure don't want to be doing this in July.
You think after the first of the year is reasonable?
I
or
think
you
so.
think you'll have to haul it before then?
Hopefully it lasts till the first of the year.
If not, we'll call a
But we'll
special
be
meeting.
ready. I mean, we know it could happen at any
Right,
time.
right, right.
Okay, very good, thank you, sir. Anything else? Any positive?
Say no, Rusty. Not another $40,000.
Yeah, I hated to lay that on you guys this morning, but
Cheaper than a new machine, I'm assuming.
Well, you've been telling us for a year now how you keep it going with Band-Aids, basically. I mean, it's just a matter of time whether you can fix this one or we had to replace it
Right.
completely.
we put a new engine in that, or a rebuild engine in that loader a year ago. So we just knew
Good
it was
for
a
a
matter
while,
of
then.
time that the tranny was going to do it too. So and it's got 16,000 hours on it, so that's a lot of hours.
Okay, all right. Anything else, sir?
Believe that'll do it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, good to see you.
Think of that for future landfill. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. See you, Kelly.
Okay, zipping right along.
How do you work? You need a break?
Um,
You okay? You need a break?
It's up to you.
You forgot, he's part of Rusty's
Dennis.
Dennis. He's recycled.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes, sorry.
Do that, and then we can.
Good morning, how are you?
Dennis, good to see you. Hi, Dennis.
I have a preliminary report. It's not total positive, everything yet, because I don't have all the information.
Let me ask you a
But,
question before we start.
okay.
You're not going to ask for 40 grand, are you?
No,
I
I've
like
actually
you
got a
already.
positive for you.
I like you. Go ahead, I'm just teasing with you.
Right off the start, I made $18,000 for you, the county.
Good.
You know
That's
what?
twice from last year.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was 10 last year. That's wonderful.
Is that
So,
cardboard?
that's cardboard. We had a good year as far as money-wise goes with cardboard. So we were averaging, well, to give you an idea, 125 a ton, 190 a ton, 170 a ton, 200 a ton. It's a really good year. Last year was $70 a ton. So I don't come to meetings very often, but it's the end of the year, and I had good news. And but anyway, we did 132 tons we shipped this year, which is 6 truckloads. So take 6 semi trucks out here, loaded the gills, and that's 534 cubic yards of compressed cardboard that doesn't go in the landfill. So think 6 semi-trucks,
Yeah,
vans,
okay.
all lined up together, and that's and
What didn't go in the
that
landfill?
didn't go in the landfill.
Absolutely.
I also do plastic bags, which is just a service for the county. We don't make no money off of it. It just gets it. I get it out of the county. Take it to Salida, to Chavano. I also do 9 tons of white paper, which is unrecycled paper. It's never been. It's magazines, computer paper of that sort. And that's also, we don't make no money off of it. It's a service. We get it out of the county. It's minimal cost. Chavano gave us a dump trailer. I just take it down there, dump it, and bring the trailer back. And 9 tons of plain old white paper, just get it out of the county that's recycled. We do real well with cardboard right now. It's a commodities market, so it changes. We ship all our cardboard to Oklahoma City at a mill down there that makes drywall paper, and that's where it goes at the moment, and it has been for the last few years.
May I ask you a question? Do you get much of this cardboard from individual citizens, or?
Almost all of it is.
Okay.
And we get it from two. We have Oak Disposal has a roll-off that they pick it up, and so far they just deliver to me every Friday. They deliver me 15 yards of cardboard or thereabouts, and plus everything else we delivered at the landfill is brought in there.
We don't pay Oak for that, do we?
No, they could charge us a drop fee, but they have not. They've been very gracious.
Good deal.
Helps them get it out of their way.
They have a service there. They allow them to dump it. They bring it to me, and I have 3 volunteers that help me on Fridays, and we bale cardboard. Well, I baled all week, but that's the big day.
Metal and plastic in the blue bags?
I don't do that. That's Oak.
Okay.
The only thing, we provide a service out there, as you know, for bottles, cans, and newspapers and things like that, plus the cardboard and the plastic bags and the virgin paper. I don't really have a whole lot to do with the cans and the bottles. I represent the county as far as information goes, but Upper Arkansas COG takes care of that. And we pay a fee, which is, last time I checked, was 78 cents a person for the county for that privilege of dumping it for no cost outright. But I bring in 18,000 new money.
Good.
It's not tax money. It's not. It's,
Right.
it's fresh money.
Figure, Dennis?
Last year's figure, I don't have it in front of me. It was around $8,000 for cardboard.
This is an education question, Donna. Where does that money go? Does it go in the general fund, or does it go back into the road and bridge,
It
or
goes
whatever?
into the general fund under the landfill, so that's part of, it's segregated, but it is part of.
You just know where the
Rusty's
money
landfill.
comes from, but it's not allocated to anybody.
My
just
recordings.
Well, that's what I have.
Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Keep coming with that
Yeah,
kind of
we'll take that every day.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, sir.
Tom?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Good job.
Yay, Dennis!
Yay, Dennis.
Are you prepared for us to take a few minutes for a restroom break?
Yeah, it's way better than hurrying me out later.
I don't know that it's really necessary to do this in the form of a motion. I'll just put us into recess for about 5 minutes at 10:47. 40.
Glass got broken.
All right. We'll move on the agenda to HR Finance.
I just buy it on my pocket.
Okay. Thank you.
And I need those signed. Those are the handwritten. And then I have a question. Who is the E911 person from the commissioners? Okay. Because we put your name on the checkbook as well. end, so I'll
Okay.
take that. And then I'll let you know when the bank has it ready where you can go sign
Yeah.
the screen.
All right.
Okay? My next one, or last one, because short and sweet. On the grounds and building. When and how long do you want me to post it? Just the Sentinel, Sentinel Tribune, both? 1 week, 2
Both, I
weeks?
think.
I think both.
My
Yeah,
opinion
both.
would be both, yes, ma'am. Any idea about the cost associated with
It's
that?
about $88.
For both?
No, because
Double just
classifieds,
for
yeah,
fun of it.
because they're a bigger font and, not statutory. So it does cost more.
Gentlemen, 1 week, 2,
Since, just comment, since we've had trouble getting applicants, hopefully the very first day we get a perfect person, but just in case we don't, I would say we ought to at least do 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'll have Chuck put it on the website, or I'll ask him to. I won't have him do it. I'll ask him if he would do that.
And is this for custodial and maintenance?
Yes.
That position?
Yes, the
Correct.
custodial amendment. And that's not good, that we're going to exclude the scales from that, is that correct?
During the daytime, there will be someone available, like for cattle truck and getting the, doing the drivers and that, but at night,
and that'll be a decision we have to make about what we're gonna do with the scale. Hours of
I agree
operation.
with that.
So, it hasn't been decided yet, but,
But this job does not include after-hours scale work, is really where I was going, because that's been a hang-up
yeah.
in the past. Okay, sounds great.
and then maybe we'll find out that wasn't the hang-up and it was just us that no one wanted to work for.
We could do the best we could do.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
See you today.
Wow.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, that was easy.
See, I make up for others.
Maybe we should institute a gift card for the shortest. Mr. Swartz,
Yes!
Veteran Service Office.
Morning.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Good to see you. Good. Good to see you.
How are you?
Good. How you doing? Good to see you.
Yep.
You're typing, so I won't shake your hand. Morning. How we all doing today?
Good, sir. And you?
Good. Doing good. Doing good.
He's across the street.
Right. Yep. Short drive. So. Let me pass out a couple things for you real quick, and then I'll go over this. Every month there's a state report that needs to be signed, and so we always give the chairman the original. Okay. So the original. Then I have copies. A working copy for everybody. Okay. Also for your
Thank you, sir.
copy. Copy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment before you start?
Yes.
I just want to go on the record and say, I mentioned this to you privately just a minute ago. I met with a lady who recently lost her husband, who was a veteran, and she couldn't say enough wonderful things about the way you and your office has handled and helped her. And publicly, I just wanted to say, on her behalf, thank you, and I wanted it in the record.
I appreciate that. This last week, we had two surviving spouses or family members come through, veterans who had passed away here recently. So it was a.
Let me ask you, do you have a copy of that as well? Where would you prefer a signature? Above my name? Or
Yeah, I'm gonna come back. Yeah, right
Not
where your name is.
signature
Oh, let me see on the original. Okay. Yeah. So
just above it?
yeah, just above it. That's where we're gonna go. So, and usually at that point, we get to that point, and you have a motion to approve it and so forth. So before we get to the report, normally I do the report first, but with Tom and you guys being new, I just thought I'd do a real quick VSO 1. I call it VSO 101 real quick, so you have a little context of what I do and why I'm here. State law. Actually, there's a state law that says the counties must have a veteran service officer. Prior to July of 2015, the state said you must, but we're not going to really give you any money for it, so good luck. That's pretty much the way the state law worked. The county used to get $100 a month up and through July of 2015, and then starting August, because it states on the July through June budget year. So August we started receiving $13.85 a month from the state, and July of this year they bumped it up again. So now currently we're getting $19.50 a month from the state. Okay?
$1,950.
Yep. So for 2018, the county will get $23,400 from the state instead of the traditional $1,200 that when I first started where we were at.
Earmarked funds or
Earmarked funds. As a matter of fact, in your copy, on the very last page, is a copy of the letter that was issued back in July when they announced the increase that was sent to all the commissioners around the state. Okay, and it states there that the purpose of is to assist in the office to help basically awareness and support the office with the needs. So because of that funding, when I first started in 2015, when I was first hired, this was a part-time position. And very early on, once I started and we started doing a little bit of community outreach and got a few things in the paper, the numbers quickly, part-time was not an option. There was no way to do this job right part-time. As a veteran service officer, my primary mission is to assist families and veterans to navigate through the VA system for their benefits, whether it's GI Bill, book rehab, survivor benefits, cemetery, Service Connect disability claims, and so forth, home loans. So that's my core mission and my responsibilities. We do more than that. My background prior to this, I've got quite a few years doing Medicare sales, and we have quite a few Medicare eligible veterans here in this county. So I found myself spending a lot of time, especially this time of year during open enrollment. We have a lot of vets who have Medicare and don't know anything how their Medicare works. So we also have been spending this time of year a lot of time assisting our Medicare vets, understanding and make elections and so forth. So, but when I first started my first day, just to give a little context, I walked into the annex and my office was an empty room with 4 walls to the floor and lights. Okay, so when you come over and see where I'm at now, I actually have a desk. Okay, and some other furniture in there. But the computer, matter of fact, was outside my office on the floor over in the corner. So literally we started in April 15 pretty much from square one and rebuilt the office. Okay, and so we've been making progress ever since. With the extra funding, that summer, August of 2015, the commissioners approved me to go to 35 hours a week. And my budget presentation I just did recently, with the increase in pay and everything else, I recommended I go to a 40-hour week to justify in conjunction with that. Some of the things we've done since then, this state report, this is a requirement that goes to the state every month. If we don't get the reports in, they don't send the money. Okay, so what I do is come in, you sign it today, I immediately email it up to the state on the same day it's signed. So that's never an issue. I pulled the state reports from 2014, the year before I was hired. The office did 140 appointments for that year. 2015, we did my first year, and I started mid-April, but really May was my first month of doing appointments. We did 575 appointments that year. 2016, we did 1,024. Okay.
Why is that? Just advertising?
Just doing basic outreach, getting things in the paper, awareness. Kind of my motto, like the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they'll come. What was happening here, we had a lot of vets who were going down to Pueblo, Canyon City, to use the VSOs down there. So we have now, most of those vets are now coming to my office. Every once in a while I still do discover one. So, but just awareness of vets understanding that someone is here is huge. Okay. One of my things I'm still working hard on is the 60 plus age demographic. That's the hardest group that I'm having to come in to see me. And a lot of that has to do because even when I retired out of the Army in 96, I didn't know what a VSO was. Okay, until I took this job, I really didn't understand what a VSO was. So the education process, that's a high priority. Constantly awareness and word of mouth in this county is still the best source that works in getting vets to come in. So, and then 2016 went through the VA accreditation process. The county's never had anyone go through the accreditation process, and what that means is once I got my accreditation done by the VA, it gave me access to what's called VBMS. VBMS is the VBA system for tracking disability claims. So when I work on disability claims now in appeals, I can actually see what's going on with these claims. Prior to that, I was relying on, hey, have you heard back from the VA? Okay, what did they tell you? Okay, which was really detrimental to the claim and to the veteran, because you don't know what you're always reacting instead of having that sense of what's coming down before it happens. So that was a huge thing. Also I've been going to National Association of County Veteran Service Officers at national training level, their conference, which is definitely in the spring, April every year, the state does a training conference they go to, and we do that every year. But the national conference, it's definitely a next level, a much higher level of training that we're going to every year on that. So the other thing with my accreditation that I can do is I am now qualified to go to when a disability claim, service connected disability claim gets denied and we appeal it, I am now accredited to go and represent them at the hearings. And we've done 5 hearings this year and we won all 5. Okay. So prior to that, the system, the way the state worked, because technically I operate under the power of attorney for VA purposes under the state office, then if you're not accredited, then you would hand that case off to the state office, and they would talk to the vet maybe a half hour before the case, come up a half hour early, review the case, and then they go in and represent the vet. That'd be like going to the court here and you've been charged with something, and you meet your public defender 10 minutes before you go in and see the judge. Okay? And that's what was happening. So now, when we have appeals, I can do a lot of prep work. They come in, we go through the process, they understand. We spend an hour, good hour and a half a lot of times prepping for these hearings. So that makes a big difference. So anyways, those are just some of the things. One of the things I'm working on now, and I actually have from the VA, we have a lot of vets, we have a lot of PTSD vets here who go down the hill for their counseling. I have a tablet from the VA. We've had some technical issues with it, so next Wednesday I'm going down to the Pueblo telehealth person at the Pueblo Clinic to see if we can get this up and running. The purpose of this tablet is when the weather goes bad, or anytime you want, instead of driving 2 hours round trip for your half hour, 45-minute or hour counseling session, they can come in, use the tablet, and talk to their counselor here and save them the stress and aggravation going through that. So those are just some of the things, not a complete list, but just some of the things of where we were and where we're at. So the report, this is the report that goes to the state every month, and it's just kind of a metrics report. It shows how many phone calls, how many vets came through. So a couple things, I just highlighted a couple things on here that are probably the most important things is volume of phone calls. We had 76 for the month of November. Vets calling me. Office visits, we had 96 appointments come through the office last month. Like I said, in 2014 we did 100, the office did 140 for the whole year. October I did 114 appointments in the month of October, so just to give you an idea. Did 2 home visits. We do have some homebound vets up here, including John Shoemaker, who's down at the Florence home. I try to get down there once a month and visit with John a little bit. So
can I ask you a question about
yes.
that? Do you drive your own vehicle to
Yes,
these?
I do.
And are you reimbursed for your...
Yes. Yeah. When I do, I usually resubmit. One of the vets that is right here in Silver Cliff, so when I do that, then it's not a big deal. But if it's 20 miles dirt road, okay, we have a few of those. Okay, so those are 2 of the main things. As far as most of the rest of the report is what forms were submitted and so on and so forth. So on the first page, if you look down there where it says DIC or new claims initiated, that number 10. That form 2122 is the form that the VA uses for power of attorney purposes, which designates me to represent them, and that gives me access to their VA claim file in the system. Without that form being signed, I can't see their stuff. So we had 10 new power of attorney forms this month, and then also, if you look down a couple lines down where it says 210966, that's the form for what they call an informal disability claim. If during our conversation we discover that he has any injuries or cancer or something that can be service connected, we file this form immediately, and that preserves his date as if he filed a claim today. Then it gives us up to 12 months to file that claim, and if we win the case, they retro pay him back to the date we filed that form. So that's just kind of the overview, the main highlights of this form. The other thing that on the second page, every fall we have what's called the Veteran Trust Fund. It's a state grant that's administered currently by the VFW. Last year and this year, the VFW's been, and Ivan Brooks, who's here, he's the grant administrator. The state grant is a grant. This year they were approved for $40,000. It's to assist veterans in need for things like utilities and firewood and food and those type of things. And we probably have gone through roughly 28,000 so far. And so that shows how many vets. We do this in a collaboration. The grant has to be administered by a nonprofit, so the county does not qualify for the grant. But we collaborate with the VFW. In previous years was American Legion, to where they come in. It's a win-win situation. They come in, I kind of pre-screen and do the paperwork, and as far as that's doing, does turn it over to Ivan, and they cut the checks. And that gives a reason, for some of these vets, that's the only time they come in once a year to receive that assistance. Gives me a chance to have that contact with them. So that's the purpose of that. Okay, and so then the third page is where the chairman would sign, and it shows the breakdown of expenses for the month that we report to the state every month. And that's so then the next page on that, the only thing I'll point out, and I usually point out every month, is where it says Vetrospect reports. If you look at the bottom, total vet for your office currently in the database is 424. When I first started, the database had about 62 or 64 vets in the database. And we're at 424. Last month we were at 414. So we've added 10 new ones this month. And that's kind of averages anywhere from 7 to 12 new vets coming in first time every month coming in to see me. Okay. So I usually add that every month just as a running total to show the progress. My estimation is that there's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 vets in the area. But the thing to keep in mind also is that the Fremont County rural area, Cotopaxi, Texas Creek, those vets down there, they come see me. They don't go into Canyon City.
That's what I was going to ask you. Are we constricted by county borders?
No. I can help any vet. Technically, I can help any vet in the state. I can actually, because I've gone through the National Association of County Veterinary Service Officers, I have POA through them also. And Orgeron, she's called me from North Carolina. She's not happy with the VSO there, so I've been helping her. And if I ever need to do anything with the VA, I just change the power of attorney over to national POA, and I can still represent her doing that. My goal is not to have a nationwide office, but for vets who I've worked with here, and when they move, a lot of times they will call me up and ask for advice and so forth. So having that National Association POA is huge. That if something comes up and they say, Tim, I want you to do this, then I have the option to still have POA out of state for them. So that's huge.
Well, would it be fair to say that as a county we're paying you to service our county veterans or not?
That's the primary mission, but
doesn't preclude you from.
No, it doesn't preclude. No. Matter of fact, yesterday I had two brothers. They're both vets, and they both have PTSD. And we're in the middle of putting their claim together. They'll be back on the 14th. They live in Canyon City. The situation is kind of interesting here. If you look at the three counties that we're surrounded by, Fremont County, Al's down there. He's part-time, 20 hours a week. He is not VA accredited. So he doesn't want to do more than 20 hours a week. We talked about this. So word of mouth travels, and so every once in a while I get vets coming up from Canyon. When I first started, I was expecting them to come from Cotopaxi. It's an easier drive, but I have vets from Canyon, Pueblo, Florence.
And I'm really happy helping these vets, whether they're here, there, or yonder. It doesn't really matter. But I'm just curious, why would they not go to the VSO office in Fremont County, for example? Why would they come to you?
Al's only open 2.5 days, Mondays, Tuesdays, half day for Wednesdays. He is not accredited. He cannot track their claims. I'm able to do more than what he's able to do.
You're the full service office, and they're not.
Yeah. I don't get very many from Chaffee County. I've had a couple from Howard and close to, but they're only open 12 hours a week. Werfel County, I am picking up a few vets from Werfel County. We have some American Legion members who have transferred down there, and so I actually had a vet come in from Levita last week. Okay, so they're open. He's 8 hours a week down there. So
does make you a world wonder. I was thinking the same thing. What if you get overloaded?
Well, right now it's manageable.
What causes them not to have full-time service? They're bigger county,
It's
got
up
more
to-
people, more vets, probably.
And my conclusion, this is just my opinion, my conclusion, no scientific data to back this up, comes down to two things. Comes down to that VSO to recognize the need of that county, and then to educate the commissioners, here's what we need to do, and here's the vision where we need to go.
Do they have more vets? Seems logical.
Well, Fremont County, definitely, they've got well over 8,000 vets down there. So they've got way more. Warfield County probably has a little bit more than we do. And Chaffee's probably got a little bit more than we do. So, but that's what it comes down to.
Well,
historically, in the state of Colorado, in the rural counties, they've been part-time, and they still being part-time. And it's underfunded, under-trained. And so what happens is the vets in the rural counties tend to get inadvertently discriminated against because not only the hours, but the knowledge base is not there. I got vets who, one of the claims that we won, we've had 2 hearings this year, and 2 vets, and we won both hearings, and they were both homes that were in foreclosure. We won those cases, they got retro paid back. One vet just got his retro payment last month, going back to 2010. And that was a nice chunk, and he was able to get his house out of foreclosure status. So that's the potential with this job when it's done right, is you impact lives. This is not just hand out some forms and brochures and good luck. If you're doing that, then you're just a clerk, and then you should be paid.
Well, you gotta let us know when you feel like you're getting overloaded, because we can help with the commissioners.
Right.
We can talk.
Yeah, it's still very manageable, and I definitely it'll grow if we keep going. One of the things, and I've talked previous months this summer about was, and I've got some organizations that are looking into some funding. I'd like to purchase the building if I can find the grant and the means to do it with private funding or grants across from the Saddle Club next to D&W. That's 1,500 square feet to be able to expand. One of the things I'd really like to do is have the space to do more education training with our vets. There are some tools at the VA and online that they can do a lot of things, access their health records. Most of our vets, very few of our vets are using the tools that are available to them to look at their health records. If you're a disabled vet and you need a letter to verify your disability, to just get your license plates or your hunting license, you could self-do that now online. When I first started, it took 6 months to get those letters, okay? And now they can do it immediately, register online and print them up. So
You're
there's a lot of
looking at
education.
grants for a new building.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that's and the other thing is that then the space would give me room to have an office set up because if I get this telehealth tablet thing going, then we'll have a lot of vets wanting to use that. You'd be amazed how many vets that are going down the hill for routine prescription updates. They have to go in once a year just to get their prescriptions updated, and they drive down there, spend an hour and a half waiting, they walk in, 15 minutes, they're done. Okay. Those are the type of things that if we have the tablet up and run, they can do that by telehealth. So
just curious, is there any precedent for billing other counties for servicing their veterans?
I don't know. There are precedents where with some of the really small counties that the state law allows them to collaborate and say, okay, if you only have 100 vets and we have 100 vets, we'll have one office between the 2 counties, and then they collaborate, and then they do the funding that way. But they don't get double funding for it, type of thing. So
you figured out what the cost per vet is for you to service a vet, no matter who they are, on an average?
That's a whole can of worms. If you feel so inclined to go, that'd be a commissioner issue level type of thing. But I have no idea how that would go, because think about it. If you're going to approach a county that's already only got their VSOs at part-time, that means they're being tight with their money anyways. Right. And if they're not willing to fund that office full-time, the odds of them wanting to share any funds with an urban county, that's just my opinion.
Well, I think that's kind of where I was headed, and I think both gentlemen touched on it as well, is we are funding the VSO office in Custer County to deal with Custer County vets.
Yep.
Anything we do above and beyond that, in essence, is costing us money. Whether it be your time or hard dollars or whatever. I certainly would think it would be reasonable if if we see this trend, let's just throw out some numbers, that you're servicing 5 vets a month out of Fremont and let's say 5 out of the surrounding counties. We probably at least need to communicate that to those county commissioners and say, don't know what's going on down there, but understand something.
Right.
Our county paid employee is servicing your vets.
Yeah.
And if it continues, then we need to look at something. That's kind of where I was headed with that whole question.
And actually, I think that's a good way to go. And that may trigger a conversation with them saying, hey, call the VSO and saying, hey, what's going on? Do you need to work more hours? And so on and so forth.
Service your people, or we may have to charge you.
And that's my hope, and that's kind of one of my hopes, that because when I went to the state conference this year, I had a couple of rural VSOs approach me who had heard that I was now full-time. And they went, well, how'd you do that? How'd you get that approved? And I said, well, it starts with education, communicating with your commissioners, having conversations, and explain and show the numbers. Here's what we're doing. Here's the need. And so, but it starts with a conversation. So I know that there's been a couple of VSOs on the western slope and up north who have approached their commissioner saying, hey, Custer County, but he's got this many vets and he's full-time. We've got about the same amount. And they've started that conversation. And so that's kind of the goal. And hopefully that
I think as Bill alluded to, man, the word of mouth gets out before long. We'll need another VSO officer because you're doing such a good job. And that may not be servicing our county vets. It's a county-wide thing.
It is. And that's and the vast majority of the time is with Custer County vets or vets who, Cotopaxi, Cody Park, that area, they're considered part of this community, so forth. And that's always going to be the priority. Right now, if they come in, and I know they're from Canyon, and for me to turn them away would be I couldn't stay, knowing that I was sending down an office where they're not going to get service as well. So that's the situation I'm in. Okay, and then the only thing I've got left on there was the Wetmore office. I usually my apologies. That's okay. Usually the most months, the 4th Monday of the month, I set up for 4 or 5 hours down at the Wetmore office. We have some senior vets down there who come in and see me. I mentioned last month, sound issue down there. When you're in that office, it's like your head's in a bucket. I had a vet come in 2 months ago, senior vet with hearing aids. We had to go talk out in the hall because the echo was so bad in there. So I don't know if there's, but I'm just going to bring that up again, that we need to do something about the sound in there. If you're on the phone in there, it's terrible. My wife says, where the heck are you? Sounds like you're in a bucket.
We discussed that last month, and if I remember correctly, we were going to ask, someone was going to tell us about deadening material or carpet or something that would help that, because that is a serious
issue. Management. That was Cindy.
I sent the automute bid. Did you get that? Because I know, I think I sent it to you and to Donna Hood.
And it was really expensive.
Well, and we had a grant that helped pay, and we used labor to install and in-kind match. But it's worked out really well in that building.
Something that to try initially, I mean, if we were to buy some of these 3-piece canvas, they were like $80, $90 or $100, and put a few of those in there, put some carpet squares on half of the office or something, just to start absorbing some of the sound. That's pretty cheap. Might be something we can do.
I say let's try that.
Let's try that. Okay.
Let's try it.
And your office
I just don't
is
have
to
any
the
budget
east.
for it.
Your office down there is on the east side of the conference room.
Right across from the sheriff's office that they're using. So I go down there 4th Monday of the month. I average the most I've ever had is 7 appointments down there in a day, usually a couple. But I think if we do it more consistent, that'll grow. As far as that goes, there's enough vets down there, I think, that'll come in. So, and that's all I've got for today. Any questions of me? That's the short version.
Well,
so would you come back to us, if you don't have it in a budget now, for this deadening suggestion that you have, and ask us for some money, because I think that's, because in an office, you close your door. If you can't hear each other, you got to go out in the hall. That makes no sense. So let's get that fixed.
Yeah, if you're ever down there, go in there and sit in there and try to have a phone call, the sound is terrible in there.
So if you'd come back and tell us how much money you need to get this done.
Okay, I can do that.
We'll discuss it.
All right. Okay. Now I need is, you have a signature and I'll be out of your way.
No, I did not. Do you want a motion to that effect?
I'll move that we approve the VSO report to the state of the feds for November 2017.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the report. VSO report is presented by Mr. Swartz. Further discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Report has been approved.
Keep the work up.
All right, we just keep plugging away.
Those people anywhere they need it. That's my opinion.
All right. Thank you,
Paid
sir.
for, but we need it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you again. Office of Emergency Management. Running a little behind schedule. Good morning.
Cindy.
Hi.
Thank you for your patience.
I snuck out and came back. So I've got my report I turned in. I was just going to hit on highlights unless you have specific questions. On page 1, I always do where I'm at with the grants and the reimbursements, and that's to keep me in line too of where things are coming in. That number total deposits may not match the audited number because if something comes in like in quarter 1, the auditors are going to move it back a year, so it may not match the Donna's records there. You've got your cash basis and your accrual basis. In the blue on my other activities, there were some save the dates things I put in an email to everybody, and I don't know if you saw those. So either January 11th or 12th, we're trying to set up a G402 course. Jay's already taken it, but the town of Silver Cliff asked for that. And so I'm waiting to hear from Roger, but it'll probably be 10 to noon on either the 11th or 12th. And that just walks you through kind of a consolidated FEMA ICS and what your statutory responsibilities are in terms of disaster declaration, delegation of authority, line of succession. That was a question when we were short-staffed there. And then there's a social media Facebook course that Mickey Trost is coming down from Denver. I have a flyer on that for you. This we planned a few months back, and just because Facebook kind of gets out of control in Custer County, and some strategies for posting, especially in the realm of emergency management and disasters. But I think there'll be some useful tools on that Facebook course for everybody, and that's a 9 to noon. That afternoon, I don't have the flyer on it, but that afternoon Michael Schaub's coming down from the state, and he's going to do an initial damage assessment training. So I'll get with JD and Jackie and try to get some folks from zoning and the assessor's office on the IDA process. And the AOP, I think I'm not sure. I have to resend the invitation now that you have emails, Tom and Bill, but the annual operating plan is Division of Fire Prevention and Control, and that is going to be presented on that's going to be presented on the 17th of January. So that's, the county commissioners are signatory on that plan. Shannon will be there.
What is that on the 17th? I'm sorry.
January 17th, the annual operating plan. I think you came to that last year. So that's when DFPC walks us through the resources on a major wildfire and how we go through that process and what the financial commitments are of the county and who has authority to order those resources, which include, the chairman of the board, the sheriff as fire marshal, the Office of Emergency Management, or the chief of the fire district. And that, I believe, does it say on here? 10 a.m. And that'll be at Wet Mountain Fire. And I think at the beginning of that, I've asked Dennis Page to do a little run through on forest health and the Life First stuff that the Forest Service has been pitching. They did a couple meetings in the last years, but that's going to be like a 10-minute consolidated. This is where we're headed with, the blowdown and the disease and some of the threats.
So you said 16, not 17.
16 is Facebook, 9 to noon. 17 is AOP.
Mm-hmm.
And the G402 is going to be the 11th or the 12th. I'll have to get back to you on that.
And then, just so you know, Cindy, I will be interviewing Extension candidates both those days, 16th and 17th. There's one on the 16th, here on the 17th,
Okay.
starting at 9.
Didn't know that. Do you want me to try to reschedule the 17th? The 16th is probably pretty stuck in stone with IDA in the afternoon and state folks coming down. AOP, we had a backup date for the 24th, but then Warfano County took that, so I would have to reschedule that one. I don't know if Shannon has a thought there. It's an interesting process to walk through on that AOP, and you will get the draft before you have to sign it. I'm sure you could probably delegate if there's enough coverage, but it's really your call if you want me to try to reschedule. So it's, Forest Service, I think State Forest Service, there might be some BLM players and other
Just
folks.
wanting my thoughts on rescheduling.
On whether we should do the AOP on the 17th without the chairman, or you think you're okay with doing that? Or do you have
I think it would be advantageous if you could attend. I mean, it's a lot of good information.
Yeah.
This is just my, I don't want to speak for Cindy, but there's a lot of really good information, and I mean, it is, because it's not if, I think we can all agree, it's not
when.
if we have another one, it's when, so
Well, I plan to go for sure.
all of us that are on the same page,
And
a lot less hurdles.
it's drinking from a fire hose.
burning.
This will be my third time around, and each year I get a little bit more out of it.
Right.
Yeah,
And you meet a lot of key folks that are there that you're going to
Where is
see.
it at?
It's at the fire station.
It's really worth going to.
Yeah. Do you want me to try to reschedule that one?
I would prefer that, but
Okay. I'll see
I
if
say
we
that
can.
without knowing how much impact that's going to have on everybody. I really
How's
have
your
to
next
be at this
week?
interview
Yeah, you do.
thing.
How-
There's only 2 local representatives from our county on that interview.
Those are in
process.
Pueblo on the 16th and 17th?
And in Pueblo on the 17th, here on the, or 16th, and here on the 17th.
Okay.
And I think for sure it'll be 9 to noon, so.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want to impact that. I'll try to reschedule. Is your next week good?
20 would be good, 19.
I know, like I said, we originally had the 20, let me look at January here.
Yeah, the 24th is a Sunday. You had mentioned that.
24th of January is another Wednesday, but they moved Warfano there, so I could see if he could do the 23rd or 25th and try to get the... Oh, let me work on that and see what I can come up with.
22nd or 23rd would be better for me. If we
22nd,
could avoid the
23rd?
25th.
Now, so that I'm clear, maybe I was trying to pull up a report, the 16th and 17th of December.
Oh, no. Oh, you're doing interviews the 16th and 17th of
Yes.
December? Oh, okay.
You were talking January.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
We're back to the 17th of January, the AOP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all January. January 16th, January 17th, and then January 11th or 12th for the 402. And I know there's no CTSI or those courses right now.
Let me check something here real quick. Okay, that's good. Let me pull up. There was some confusion. Originally, those were scheduled for December. And I was looking at my December. When I look at January, it is the 16th and 17th.
Of January? Okay, let me try to reschedule that, and we'll just, if it doesn't work, but we had we originally had an alternate date for that information, and then I'll send everybody out an invitation so you can RSVP, so just watch for that. I'll try not to overload your inboxes. Other than that, we're getting ready to publish the Sangre Foothills Community Wildfire Protection Plan. That'll go out to a public comment period for a couple of weeks. We might have to kick it out a little longer because it's going to be hard for people to look at it over the holidays, just because we're short time there. The continuity of operations plan I'd presented last year at the end of December, and then I never. Donna was going to help me work on that, and I need to get that done. Meredith and I have taken a stab at making some updates. and I'm going to submit that in. But there's a potential that if I don't get that thing, finished and really bought into, that I could lose 10% of my grant funding, and I don't know that that'll actually happen. But it's one of those government hoops to jump through. Where we go if roof collapses this building, or all of the county buildings, and so that's a draft that I've got, and I don't know if there's somebody that would be a point of contact on there for me, but I really don't have any authority to pull everybody together. It might be a good thing to work on at a staff meeting, and different department heads. So I can, I've made some suggestions, even with some alternate locations, and I as alternate locations I put in most of, like assessors and clerk and treasurers going to Wetmore because it's ADA compliant. There's also a section in there that says that the county attorney and Office of Emergency Management could work out contracts on any facilities, because if we did have to relocate for, many months on a building, it would really depend on what space is available locally and what our needs are. So it's kind of a Cheetos plan in that regard. I don't think everybody's really bought into it the way the state would like to, and got involved, but I'll need some help with that. And then the guidance for the 2018 EMPG grant that came out last Friday. I've got it printed out. This is my 2017 grant and the quarterly reports, and I've got the guidance to start the 2018 grant. It has to be signed off by the chair on the staffing pattern, so once we get budgets finalized, I'll get that staffing pattern done, and then the CFO signs off on the financial piece.
So can I interrupt, because you went by
Sure.
real quickly? What is it that we can help with?
On the COOP? On the continuity of operations plan, I've got a few key questions that I need, a point of contact to help me with, and it might be somebody that's more on the facility side than the emergency management side. And that's where Donna was doing facilities. Was that you, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give you this, and you can see some of the highlighted sections. It's dated as an update on the 29th for the end of this month for me to give to Christy. But there's some yellow sections, like building repairs. Those are great. Who's responsible for that? Is it our grounds and maintenance guy, or is it you?
Hopefully we'll have that.
Yeah, so maybe if we could set a time to get together, and I know we've talked about doing that anyway, and probably the same, Bill, if you and I could sit down and just get, and I'm welcome to sit down with you again anytime too, but
Feeling left out.
yeah.
I'm kidding.
I know you're all drinking from a fire hose, but yeah, it'd be nice to sit down and catch up individually. So yeah, Tom, if we just work on that at some point. And then the EMPGs, it's pretty straightforward. Last year's, the EMPG is the Emergency Management Performance Grant, and that's what funds up to 50% of my EMPG eligible costs, which are staffing, travel, communications, office supplies, that kind of thing. It doesn't get into the Homeland Security grants, the special projects grants, the grant like a Wetmore, that's all excluded. So this grant this year it's funding 41% of my program costs. It's eligible for up to 50. And we did increase that grant from $30,000 in 2016 to $36,000 in 2017. I was actually eligible for about $41,000, and so but the state can also come in and review my performance on that grant and pull the plug and cut back on funding, and they have done that, and they've helped terminate some emergency managers that they didn't feel were doing the program requirements. So part of that grant is, again, the state saying what I'm going to do. And last year's performance grant was 50% state mandated items and 25% optional plans to work on. This year I'm looking at the new guidance, and it's 75% mandated and 25% optional. So I'll be meeting with the Regional Field Manager Coleman. We'll be doing a meeting in Canyon City Thursday and going over that. So that's something I can bring you up to date on a sideline too. But part of that is working on that emergency operations plan to the national standards and making sure everything's in there, and then testing and training and doing some things. But we can do planning all year. And then the big thing that I needed some assistance with today that I had Brenda add was the alert and notification on the flash flooding in the Junkins wildfire burn scar area. And this was a project that Bob had us looking at, and the 3 counties were looking at some funding, and the state is looking at providing funding out of the disaster declarations. And so alert and notification was one of the state's priorities. Mike Schaub at the state helped me identify 3 vendors and bids. And the last one in was the One Rain one, and it's kind of the medium one. If we did move forward, we'd have to send it out to all 3 to bid it apples to apples. The problem I see with moving forward is that the county would have to absorb all the costs in years 2 to 5, and I don't have the authority to make that decision. But it's kind of, we're at, we just table this process, or we look at funding year 1, and
those O&M.
Yeah, I know.
Reminded me of the cost of this thing.
So there, I got 2 proposals because I tried to bring. Yeah.
I read this proposal.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So the year 1 costs are about $105,000 that you'd be asking the state to fund, but then the year 2 to 5 costs are anywhere from 15 to 22 grand a year annually. So my thoughts on this are that we can obviously go 3 ways. We can just table it, and I can just send Mike an email at the state and say we can't do this. We could pursue it. The state could still potentially turn it down, but if we pursue it, you're signing on to own those costs.
We don't know enough to.
And the third option is, if we decide we really don't want to do it, you could send a letter as the county commissioners to the state, just basically saying, we agree. Alert and notification is important, but there's no way that we can fund these types of things, a county our size.
So aside from the water rising, what will this do for us?
Just trying to, beyond what the National Weather Service is looking at radar, we're trying to notify folks that a wall of water's coming, like what came July 29th. It's a life safety. Beulah got $200,000 for a siren system.
Right.
Sirens in the Greenwood and Wetmore area would be really complicated. They could be used for more things like wildfire.
So when I read this, it sounded like if the water rose to a level of the whatever sensor it is, it would send out an alert to whoever has the equipment to receive the alert. Is that right?
Correct. Which would include
where I'm having my little problem with this is someone can't go out and go, hey, the creek's getting pretty high, call the people. I mean, we don't have that many people.
Logistically, the problem there is the top 6 miles of South Hardscrabble, there are no people. So we're relying on National Weather Service radar data alone. And they are doing advisories, warnings, and flood watches.
And those come beeping over our phones all the time, don't they?
No, National Weather Service puts them out in emails. Really what everybody would have to do down there is, and we could look for grant funding to do that, but everybody who's living along the creek that really is concerned about their property should probably have one of the NOAA weather alert radios turned on. But they also have, a personal responsibility to watch those things themselves. And what happened July 29th, we started this project way before the monsoonal season and the flooding last year. What happened last year was, Bill Donnelly did see some high water, and he's the first one there. The Weather Service, the way the storm tracked with the drainage, it missed it. I mean, it's really an interesting piece of technology, but if we were in Coal Creek Canyon or Boulder County or Larimer County, I think, it'd be a lot more something we could look at. I really think I just want to kind of close things out and move on. It's not something I can specifically endorse on the return on investment.
So what is your recommendation?
Yeah, you need to come to us with some kind of a recommendation. I mean,
my recommendation is maybe to proceed with weather radios, and rather than me have Brenda draft a letter from the commissioners telling the state that alert and notification is our #1 priority, but there is no way that this county can afford to fund a project of any magnitude in years 2 to 5, even if the state did come through. And I think just to close it up with them, to follow up, it'd be nice to...
I would accept this recommendation.
Yes, I agree. I mean, 192,000 is...
You know, we could move the system or expand it, and we will see other issues like this in the future. But I think we need to look at
other things.
Look at lower cost solutions.
I'd rather buy 10
weather radios
and hand them out to the citizens along the creek.
And I can look for
Shannon's got a question.
Not a question, a comment, sir. The challenge we have, and I'm just saying this is blanket, I'm not pointing fingers or trying to cause blame, but the trouble we have is with a simpler solution like the radios, and Cindy and I have talked, there's no way we can swing what that proposal is, but like the weather radios, the folks aren't going to carry them. We can't get the fire department to carry the $1,800 each radios that we purchased. I mean, there's $20,000 of radios that set the fire station because they refuse to carry them. It's not up for discussion. They aren't going to do it. And so that's why Code Red, the messages you talk about, the flagging that you get, we receive that information, and our dispatchers take the time to put a Code Red message out. That's how we're doing that now. I agree that the best solution for us is radio, but it's not practical because they're not going to use them. So just something to consider before we spend $5
right.
on
And nobody wants to make that decision right now. You're right.
You can't force them to do it. I mean, they have to be willing to do that. And so just something to think about. Again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. It's just that's where we're at today.
And I think your point is extremely well taken, and I really appreciate what you said. Folks who live in a high water area need to take some responsibility themselves. If it starts to rain, they need to look out the window or whatever their procedure is going to be. And I don't mean that tongue in cheek. I mean that sincerely. I mean, they need to take some responsibility. And if they see the creek rising, they need to decide, hey, it's time to go to higher lane. So I'm just having a real hard time spending a very significant amount of money when we have so many needs in the county for a few people who would be affected, and not that they're not as important as anybody else, but when they have the opportunity to, it's not a 10-foot wall of water that comes in like a hurricane surge. So I'm just having a hard time spending the money on this.
And that's kind of where I'm at too. I just don't see this county being able to afford to do that. We go back to the low tech issues. In October, we did a post-wildfire flash flood weather spotter training with the National Weather Service. They came to Wetmore. We have to put in some tools. We've got to get the public to call 911. There's a lot of...
Well, there's things that we could spend money on, and we should, to help in times when we know things could be happening. That's right. You get a forecast going to be raining. You got a bunch of trees that have been burned out, and we got an area. We can issue people radios at that time of the things we've got and have them on alert. And come up with a plan. We need somebody to be the focal point. Sounds like you working with.
Yeah, and the state did put out a 60-page plan, and for the folks in Wetmore, that needs to be like a 2 or 3 page plan.
So you take it. We come up with our own plan that we can discuss and adopt.
We could train somebody in Wetmore, give them the responsibility of radios, and say, look, we're having an issue here. Get these radios out.
Next 2 weeks, get them out to the right people, and come up with a plan that we know what we're going to do and how we're going to do.
Yeah, we're going to have to work with Wetmore Fire, Road and Bridge, and Mike Kaplan are our...
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Road and Bridge, great, because, they got radios, they got towers, we can get a hold of people, they can do things, and they can be told out there to hold them.
And volunteer fire department.
Sure.
Yeah, and, and Gary's been great on that. I mean, those guys have had
So rather than discuss that right now, we need to have you focus it for us and come up with some options, because we're not going to spend the money to go get some automatic sensors. And that's just crazy.
Exactly, and so what I just needed here was an official a position, because I can't make that decision.
Well,
you guys
are
on
trying
this.
to help you here.
Yeah,
right
I know, and so and that's really the planning is still going on, and so this was kind of just to wrap this up.
So let's wrap it up. I'll move that at the present time, subject to change like everything else, that the one rain system of notification is something we as a county are not willing to pursue at this time, and we're asking our administrative assistant to please get a letter for signature by our chair to notify the state that at this time we're working on
other options,
less expensive options.
Okay.
I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded that we draft a letter and let the state know that we're not capable of pursuing an early warning system at this point, and that we will explore other options that are realistic for our county. Is that
Appreciate that.
reasonable? Any further discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye.
Then I move,
Motion
in
carries.
addition
Hold
to
on,
this,
sir.
now,
Motion carries.
I move that
Wait a
we,
minute, wait a minute.
Hold
I'm
on,
still
sir.
writing down the first motion.
Ben, are you okay with that?
Yeah,
I'll
I
help
just need to
Just
get.
make a
yeah.
note.
Yeah.
I'll get you the contact info.
Great, thank you.
Cool. All right. go ahead,
now,
sir.
Wait,
see if she catches
you
up.
guys wanted me to write these down, so
You're
I'm
doing a
trying
good
to
job.
write
Keep it
these
up.
down, so hang on.
Well, we'll,
I don't know shorthand.
I'll
I
restate
move
for you,
that we
so.
give the clerk a speed writing course.
Shit.
I am
I
speed
move
writing.
we,
Go ahead, Bill.
That would be good, thank you. Okay, ready for the
okay,
next
now
one?
I move that we follow through with that, and I would like to establish a process. Protocol to do that, and I think Cindy ought to run the show here.
Yep.
And actually come back with some options on how we're going to implement a plan to help the citizens do a better job of jumping out of the way the next time it rains or whatever. So come back to us.
Okay. No, and
So
that's.
I move that we formally establish that, and let's get the options so that Tom is, he writes this letter. Okay.
I'll second it.
All right.
Been moved and seconded to establish a set of protocols to move forward with some option of an early warning system.
Okay.
That's
And I'll work-
reasonable. Bill, you're,
I think that's
Okay.
perfect. I think Shannon, if you got something to add.
Just a
to
quick
that.
question, Bill. When you're talking with Gary, I know from discussion earlier, you're going to meet with him about some road and bridge things. Could you just ask him if Road and Bridge by chance has some old drill case piping or something that we could just take to put by the bridges, paint them white with black marks on them?
We'll work on what
Just-
we can,
just something
high
that-
water marks.
Yeah, if they just have some material
Sure.
laying
Low tech.
around down there, or if it's something that we might need
Some
to
of that
purchase.
scrap metal.
Because that's pretty cheap.
We can work that, but we're going to have some options in that part
Yeah.
of it, and we'll make
Yeah.
sure that happens without.
And to follow up on that plan's going to include dispatch, the sheriff's office, road and bridge, and
don't give it
the
to us
Wetmore
now.
Fire. No, I just want you to know those
Well,
are the
that's fine.
players.
It might be even more than that.
Yeah.
So come back.
Call the question.
Yeah, we got to get the vote done.
been moved and seconded to task Cindy with coming forward with a protocol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
It'll work.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Well done, young lady.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Do you
Now,
want to leave that, or? do you
I want to
me
leave
come
that,
back?
and then
Okay.
will you look at your calendar and see when
Yes, how
I'm-
long do you think that
I'll just.
annual
Let's just-
operating plan meeting will last? 2 or 3 hours?
2 hours, I'm guessing.
AOP,
Yeah,
I'd say 2 would be plenty.
yeah, in January.
Um,
So I'll check
Those
with
interviews start at 8.
Depends on how many questions you have, Mr.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll see if we can move it to the
I'm
afternoon.
gonna say that would probably work.
We could move
Probably
it
the
to,
best
We are
option.
in West Cliff.
Don't
right
try
now.
to reschedule that.
let me see if we can move it to 2 p.m.
On the 17th, we'll
Yeah.
be here, so if we're finished then.
Oh, okay.
certainly
1 or
we'll be
2?
Available.
Would 1 be?
Make it 2,
I'm assuming you have a lot of
Okay.
people traveling
Okay.
to and from, so I would guess the earlier the better, but,
I'll see what people say.
Yeah,
in the
they're all federal employees.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to get paid to sit here anyway.
Did you have any other questions for me on what's going on? I mean, the best thing to do is just sit up one-on-one sometime and.
Yeah, I'll set up a time if you.
Okay, yeah, if you both would, that'd be great, and just
Making the
a
rounds.
little orientation, yeah. Okay, great.
And just keep hammering away your meeting notices for us too,
Yeah, yeah.
if you would, via
I will.
email.
Okay, sounds great.
All right,
I appreciate it. Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Cindy.
Really?
She knows that.
According to the agenda, we have no old business,
That's good news.
so we'll move on to new business.
Public comments.
Yes, as we get to those, correct, yeah. First on the agenda for new business is the Custer County Economic Development Corporation.
Oh, you want to keep on?
Yes, sir, please. How are you?
There he is.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you.
for being
Good
here
to
today.
see you.
See you, Mr.
See you. By the way, thanks for being in our Christmas parade.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Of course, right away, my granddaughter, we got down to the grocery store and she said, Papa, what did we win? I said, "Mom, can't answer that."
Yep.
So that was fun. She had a good time.
Good.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at your application, and it says 2017 membership application.
Obviously, that's 18.
Okay, just want to make sure we weren't about to enroll and then have to do it again
No,
next week,
no.
2 weeks, or whatever it is.
No.
Okay. This is the county. Is the county currently a member?
It is not.
Okay. Was it available last year for the county to be a member, and the county chose not to do that?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is the? I know we get. I said we, the county, would have one member on your board of directors. Is that correct? If we are a member.
Actually, that starts if you look at the different levels. The top level, the 5,000 that was proposed, is an automatic board membership.
Okay.
The lowest level does not include eligibility for board membership. The next level up, 200, I believe, is $250. Makes that particular membership eligible to be on the board.
Okay.
Would be.
And this question has come up before, and forgive me for rehashing this, but I really want to get it clear in my mind. You're a private corporation. I know you're a nonprofit, 501c4. Six. Okay. So you can politically lobby.
Correct.
I have some concern about the county sitting on the board, because this is a county thing. County sitting on the board of a private entity. That's a problem for me. Maybe it's acceptable, and I don't know, but it's unprecedented in my mind. I don't remember ever having any board that I've ever been on in my life where a governmental agency had a seat on a private corporation. Is there any response to that?
Well, actually, I think that's not uncommon in those cases of board commissioner boards being or members being on private economic development boards. You certainly could check with some of your neighboring commissioners, because I think most of the surrounding counties, the commissioners are on the boards.
Private corporate, private economic development?
A nonprofit, yeah. I mean, I think there's a difference between being
The difference between a
yeah, a difference there in terms of one of the I think one of the positives of commissioner being on the board is that, as you know, most of the DOLA grants that come through to economic development come through the county by law, by county. Having a member of the board or of the commission on the board, I believe, adds a level of transparency there in terms of what happens to the funding. You have that anyway, of course, because no funds are actually distributed until the commissioners sign that, correct?
But in the past, without being a member of your organization, owning a membership, the county did endorse your concepts, and as such, you are eligible for a DOLA grant. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the DOLA grant always comes through the county.
Right.
And then you, as the commissioners, forward that money to economic development or to other organizations as well. It's not just economic.
In my mind, I'm trying to reconcile the utility of the county being a member of your board of directors. Why would we want to do that?
Well, for one thing,
opposed to economic development. That's not the key here.
Yeah.
The key here is that's your group. You come up with your concepts. You come discuss them with us and the constituency, and we agree to endorse it or not endorse it. I'm still having this. This has been. I've been playing with this for a while
okay.
in my mind. I just can't get there.
I guess the day-to-day decisions that we make as a private corporation are basically for the public. The overall purpose of economic development of our corporation is to further responsible economic development in Custer County. That all plays into what all of you, the three of you, are doing.
Right.
And that's the reason why you're here, is to the health and welfare of the county. Having that intimate relationship, I think, and the immediate feedback, as we as a board of a private corporation to have the immediate feedback of a commissioner is of great value.
But the problem there is the commissioner can really, as a member of your board, a single commissioner has no teeth. I mean, it takes a minimum of two of us, hopefully three of us, on any decision. So being a member of the board, I mean, if I was your member of the board, the only thing I could ever say is, well, that sounds like a great idea. Let's pitch it to the rest of the board, which is what you do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused.
I have some comments, but I'm going to defer because I'd like for you to.
Okay, and Jay, you've been extra active today, and I appreciate it. And that's great. It's fun to listen to it as well. But in my opinion, is we can't be on your board. You're lobbying people to help do things, and we can't have somebody lobbying ourselves back. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's great. Economic development is a good thing. I think we should have an economic development function happen. We support that, but we need to make it fair. I think we ought to have a budget line in there, but it's not a CCEDI, whatever it is, budget line. It's an economic development line for the county, and anybody ought to be able to come and lobby us for a good idea. It's not exclusive to look at you as the only entity in the county that comes up with good ideas. So that's why I think it would be very inappropriate to spend the money, especially any kind of money, to have and I think I echo what Jay said. It takes two to tango on this board. And we don't want to pay $15,000 to go have a county commissioner meeting at a CCEDI meeting either. So I think you have the opportunity to come to us anytime, and if we want to endorse it, we will. If we don't, that's fine, and we can make those decisions. And you need to make a good business case on any idea, whether it's
absolutely,
which should come forward and have plenty of time for public comment to participate in the meeting as well. So far, I haven't heard a lot of people in the background at any of these discussions that have an input to help us better make a decision on whether to throw in or not. So I would throw in with Jay and exactly echo what you said, and Tom,
go ahead, sir.
Well, in response, your point is well taken in terms of the budget line. Within the county, that's the way I would certainly see it.
Right.
Within your budget, being your county commissioner's budget, economic development is not a corporation. It's a line item that's available for
anybody
I suspect it would be mainly available or mainly used by economic development because we're the ones who are out there pounding the bushes, trying to see what we can do to come up with projects that will help the community.
And I concur completely. And if you came to us with a project and asked for money from our budget line, I'd go, great. Then we could decide let's fund it or not. But being a member is where I'm having a problem. Sorry.
Okay. Intentionally, I wanted to defer to my two colleagues pertaining to this membership thing. I want you and people in the audience today to understand, we have not discussed this membership thing other than in the budget workshop the other day, which of course was an open meeting. I was prepared to take a little of the heat today because of my position on this. I would not, as a commissioner, entertain the idea of serving on a board, the Fair Board, any other board, and I cannot support us paying for the right to sit on a board that, number one, I don't believe we have any business to be on.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with my opinion about economic development in this county. It is certainly directed only towards my feelings about spending taxpayer money to sit on a private corporation's board, realizing that 5 votes, I certainly would not, if the board agrees, would not volunteer to be that person to sit on that board. I think, as Jay alluded to, I just wouldn't have the authority as a commissioner to vote on anything that would reflect this Board of Commissions, which is why I would be on in the first place. So we would just be really chasing our tail as far as I'm concerned. So I can't support and will not vote to support county membership on your board respectfully.
Could I respond to that?
Sure.
Although it doesn't exist today, as a member of economic development, if the county were to be a part of the economic development, in an advisory position, not a voting member, just as I mean,
you can come to us
we've had that, but we've had that in the past, where commissioners have at least attended, no money,
right.
In terms of membership, but have at least supported economic development and what economic development is doing by being an advisory member.
So, if I can respond to that, I like that idea a lot. We have many organizations that are part of the county that are not private corporations, but the essence is exactly the same. The commissioners sit on the board, the airport board, the Rotary board, not the Rotary, the rodeo board, that kind of thing, fair board. Just kind of listen and get involved so we know what's going on with the community. So being a non-voting guest advisor, I'm fine with. I have a real problem if I'm a voting member and I vote with the board, and then I come sit here, I have a strict conflict of interest right off the bat, an enormous conflict of interest. I said yes to you, and then it comes to me here, and I go no. I mean, what is that doing? Yeah. So I've got cramps over this.
Okay, then
other
then
positions, just to clarify, Jay, those other fair boards and other kind of things are sort of county entities anyway.
Well, that's right.
And they're not private organizations.
I absolutely agree. But this is an organization designed strictly for the benefit of the county.
So
nobody makes money there.
Right.
So whether they are, maybe they ought to be an organization.
Well, what I was going to say, if we have a budget line that says economic development, we care about it.
Right.
Why aren't we sponsoring that and soliciting people to come?
Well,
for the same thing.
There used to be a county position in economic development.
Right.
And the commissioners at that time kind of yawned and said, we don't need economic development in this county. And that position was done away with. And in fact, that's the whole reason that our corporation actually got started, was because the county dumped the whole idea of economic
I
development.
think you've heard us say we all support economic
You do.
development, so,
I'm just explaining
Right.
that
in
it's not
effect, with the budget
unusual.
line here, we are in effect doing that anyway.
All right, then let me, without consulting with my board, the rest of whom could not be here today, let me make a suggestion then. One, we would, and you can subtract out the $5,000 membership. We would request that you create in your budget the remaining balance that we have in there for projects, for potential projects that we have. Obviously, it's not going to be.
It's an open.
It's an open budget. It's not to Economic Development Corporation. It's the county will establish a budget for economic development equal to the amount that we had requested, less the $5,000 membership.
Did we not? I mean, isn't that, assuming we approve the budget with your input in there?
That may be the way you were planning on it anyway. That's all. What we want to be, what we are requesting is that if we come to the county for projects that you as commissioners agree are in the best interest of the county in terms of economic development, that there is money there for matching funds or whatever is needed. That's what we're.
Well,
we're going to come up with a process yet, but we have already agreed that we care about economic development. We're working on how to handle that from a procedure point of view.
Yeah.
And I think, and if it falls under one of the commissioners as an item, maybe it does, or we appoint somebody else who does. We've got to work through that.
Okay.
So the budget request, if I remember correctly, please fix me if I'm not, was about $23,000.
That's correct.
So if we took out
5,000.
5,000 from that,
Yeah.
if we left, was it 18?
18 to 20, something like that.
Okay, if we left that in there, and then you come to us and here's what we want.
Or somebody else does.
Or somebody else does.
It's not a.
I concur.
Yeah.
I concur.
We got to be careful how we focus this,
You're
because
right.
it's.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's for economic development. So that would be sufficient.
And I believe that's what he is saying. He's suggesting that rather than we have a line item budget for the Economic Development Corporation,
just
that
economic development.
You put it in economic
as
development.
economic development.
The problem, of course, in the past has been that line item has been there, and it's been empty. And it's difficult for us sometimes to come up with matching funds that are logically the county's. So yes.
But see, we got to keep it clear too. Anybody can come to us, and if it's for $100 million, they could propose that. And if we found $100 million and we wanted to fund something, that'll happen.
Absolutely. And if we
the
can,
same process.
Yes.
Just because there's a budget item in there doesn't mean that automatically, well, the
I'm
county will
100%
give us
behind you.
$5,000. We're going to go to them.
I'm with you 100%.
And from a personal standpoint,
Yes.
I commend your organization immensely. Without you, I grant you, anybody else may come forward, but at the moment, without you, nobody's looking at these things. Nobody's looking at the trails, the signs, all those things that I know you're involved in.
Right.
Aside from the broadband project, I mean, which is...
That's just one.
That's just one of them. There's a lot of things. So I just want to tell you,
I agree.
commend you for doing that.
I do too, and a thick hide you got too, by the way. But I also know that when we put in a budget line and people start talking about it and the newspapers report, oh, somebody came with a trails idea, somebody else will be triggered, and maybe we ought to add painting bridges, I don't know.
Yeah.
So things can happen and we can grow, and I like that idea. I like the growth aspect of it. But it's not restricted, and I don't want everybody thinking, well, it's a private corporation that's doing it, we'll just leave them to do it. And we've got to make sure that's clear when we publish stuff and when we budget things.
Nothing would make me happier than for you to be tasked with so many good economic development studies that you have to say, where the heck are we going to come up with more than $20,000 or whatever we got? Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly agree with my fellow board members in, number one, thanking you and your organization, which I've said before, of really being the leading forefront on the economic development push. As a board member, I would feel a lot more comfortable if this was an economic development committee versus a corporation. That's not how it played out, and that's fine.
Forced to do what they did because we wouldn't form a committee.
Somebody wouldn't.
And they may be part of a future committee with from another entity. Who knows?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
But I certainly don't want you or anyone in this room to misconstrue that our hesitancy to become a member of your board has nothing to do with our opinion on economic development.
I understand.
It's not a slam against your corporation. For me, as a board member, it is a statement of what I believe that I need to do as a commissioner, and that's the end of it. There's
That's
nothing
fine.
else to be written into that.
That's fine. I would
Chairman,
still.
could I just, we
Yes.
have the Colorado Independent Ethics Commission that can address this issue. If you would like me to make an inquiry about whether, a county can be an ex officio member of an organization like this, I can make that request and get an opinion on that issue. But that's just an avenue that's available.
Could I request that be done?
You certainly can. I don't need that for myself because ex officio is totally different than what we're talking about, being a dues paying, voting full member.
Well, no, I think we've already gotten past that. I mean,
but you're just saying like an advisory capacity.
I still think it would be a benefit to the county and to our organization to have an advisory position, a commissioner in an advisory position.
I concur completely. Had you not been removed from the budget, from the county completely, and you were forced to do your own thing, you would have had one of us on your group, as we sit on all the others. So I'm fine with that. And in fact, I would volunteer, but just a suggestion, that we do have someone who comes to your meetings to get a feel for what's going on, say, hey, what about this? Things we do with all of our other organizations.
Give us some
You know what
feedback.
I would do, Jay, personally? I would rather appoint somebody that we choose to do that for us. And the reason is to keep the perception problem out of it. And also, our own biases. I mean, you may think that painting signs is the most important thing in the world.
Right.
You've got power to come in here and kick us around a little bit, so. And we vice versa. So I would rather have somebody out here volunteer to be our economic rep from a committee point of view, because they could go out and not only get this corporation, but other people that might be in the community as well, and really advertise it. Get them to have a meeting downtown, and then come to this board as our rep with some advice and bring in the right people in and out.
But don't we do that anyway? I mean,
well, maybe you do, but see,
I mean, don't you have positions on all of these other boards where and it's with the same purpose of you being able to give your feedback to them and them being able to bounce ideas off of you, again, in an advisory position as a member of the board.
As a commissioner, I don't sit on any boards. I am a point of contact for organizations only.
That's right.
So I don't.
Well, I'm sorry, I chose the wrong word by saying sitting on the board. Yeah, we've already gotten past
but
that.
Sitting as anything when you say advisory, it's like we're going to turn to you and what do you think? What do you want us to? And then you're going to put together a lot of things based upon one guy's opinion that sits on a board that has a little more.
Let me go back
I think the members of our board are a little more sophisticated than just to. If you were on our board and you said, "Hey, what about this?" I don't think we would just automatically knee-jerk say, "Yeah, he's a commissioner. Let's do what he says."
I would object the other way around. I don't want you lobbying me to go to the board to get a good idea that you think is a good idea.
Let me go back to the councilor's comments. Number one, I apologize for my knee-jerk reaction to what you were suggesting. let's assume we're past the whole membership thing.
It's gone, it's behind
And
us.
certainly I would not be opposed if you want to pursue that, Clint, to see where the legal ramifications are. for
I'm
that.
not sure exactly what I would be asking then. I mean, what if the county was somehow involved with this private economic development corporation? I guess I would need to know what the capacity would be, so I could phrase the question accurately.
I mean, as an advisory, it would be an advisory position. An advisory position to the board, not on the board.
Yeah, and I just couldn't support that. I would love to be invited to your meetings and set through those meetings.
Yeah, I don't mind
For
doing
me
that
to
either.
gain information, not to give you any advice, one bit. I attended a fair board meeting. I just sat and listened to gather information. I certainly wasn't there as an advisory capacity for this board. So that's why I guess, Clint, I kind of said, I don't think you need to do it because I'm not interested. Let me just say that.
Let me, if I could make another request of the board. Would you mind contacting some of your fellow commissioners in adjoining counties and some of the contacts that you made, and ask them how do you interact with the private, and we're only talking about those who are dealing with private corporations, and ask how do you interact with them, because I think because we are dealing with overall governmental contracts, grants, that there is an appropriate position on this private board for a representative of the county. And it'd be interesting, and I'll admit I have not done it, but it'd be interesting if you as commissioners would talk to some of your fellow commissioners and say, how do you interact with economic development?
Okay. I will certainly contact commissioners from Alamosa and Baca County who I know.
Okay.
And I will discuss that with them.
You might ask CCI, I'm sure.
I have already.
Oh, have
In
you?
fact, Tom and I are going to, hopefully, we'll talk to Jay, haven't talked to him yet, but we want to go up there and.
When is your next CCI?
We did not have, well, that's in February.
Oh.
But
Well, you made a lot of
we're going to go
contacts.
up and, yeah, we have already, and I would like to go back before Christmas and get a little more what you can and can't do as a county commissioner, which you've been through already. And so I'd like to do that, and, with the director of CCI has invited us to do that.
I didn't know you were thinking that, but there is a gentleman named Dennis Hunt from CTSI, our insurance company,
Yeah, I haven't talked.
who is an absolute guru.
Yeah,
He'll quote as if it was the
Chapter
Bible
verse.
to you. I mean, he's wonderful. He will be happy to. He told me, bless you, he'd be happy to come down here to talk to us in a workshop or any other way you would like. I would be delighted to have him come down because that is what he does, is to help boards decide how to function as a board better. We've had him down here 2 or 3 times, Brenda. How many times has he been down here, Dennis? At least 2, maybe 3. Any time. He's been down here multiple times to help us decide how to do things. And I would strongly urge you, rather than go up there, to ask him to come down.
It's against parliamentary law to make a negative motion. If you want to make a motion pursuing the membership of the Custer County Economic Development Corporation, you're more than welcome to do that. And I will.
Who's that? Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to you two, and myself. If not, if we do not have a motion to that effect, then obviously
it's dead.
It's dead in the water. So the chair would entertain a motion to.
I don't think
We don't need a motion.
Hearing none. Chair
Whenever
declines.
your meetings are, I'd be happy to.
I'm sorry?
Your meetings are open to the public?
Meetings
Are
are,
you
yeah,
meetings?
definitely open to the public.
Where do you advertise them?
We don't.
Send me an email.
Other than on the website, we have a Facebook page.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want the public to know?
Absolutely no reason not. Yeah. No, the more the public we can get behind this, it's probably the worst thing that our corporation has done has not advertised what it does for the community. There are all kinds of rumors out there about what economic development does or what it would like to do.
Sure.
And I would love to dispel those ideas. That was part of the reason for wanting one of you commissioners to be on our board, was to totally dispel that, to add a level of transparency that's not there. But yes, our meetings are always open to the public, and you're right. We probably should do a better job of advertising. Yeah. I would, in closing, if I may, I would still encourage you to put in, if possible, at least into the budget what our recommendations are, because those are monies that we have projects for, in addition to any other outside people who come in. Maybe you need to put in more than that, but
they're not earmarked.
Yes, I understand they're not. You just have a budget line. Yep. But I'm telling you that we have projects that we have laid out for that we're working on that we may well need that amount of money for.
That's all the more reason you should advertise for people out there in the community to know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's not our job to advertise for you.
No, but it's your job to make the decision of whether you, as commissioners representing your constituents, whether this is money that should be allocated.
Right, and we get that when you come to us with a specific request for a project.
And
the more you
that's
advertise
obviously
what's
the way
in
it
your
would be
hopper
done. Yeah.
with the public, the better it ought to be for you.
We have never come before the commissioners asking for money without providing full and complete detail of how the money is going to be spent, what the project's for, nor would DOLA accept that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Miss Brenda, could you call Donna and ask her if she would have time to come over as soon as Sheriff Byerly's done, please? Thank you. Mr. Byerly. I know.
I would ask. I have a meeting in 8 minutes, so
we're going to make it quick.
Mr. Prince?
How are you, sir?
Mr. Flower?
Good to see you.
He's fast.
You say you have a meeting in 8 minutes?
Yeah. 7 now.
Apologies for running behind. What's up?
Just here for the for your approval of the
plan.
LP for West Cliff Town Board.
Yep.
What's the downside?
It'd be nice to have more money, but I think at some point, the discussion has to come out. But I mean, it's not something I'm necessarily proposing, but we start looking at numbers eventually.
But this is the same contract.
It's the same as last year.
Different than last
Same
year.
as last year. It's exactly the same. There's no downsides.
Make a quick comment. I was, as my other role with the town of West Cliff, I had input into this contract, wrote some of it, all of it, I don't remember exactly, and I feel it'd be appropriate for me to recuse myself from this discussion,
Thank you, sir.
from this decision.
I'll just add, so the town of West Cliff's been very cooperative with me and my requests, and working with the sheriff's office on all the services we provide, and they in turn, they're going to help us out. They've agreed to purchase 2 speed signs that are going to go on some areas just south of town here, still in the town of West Cliff is one of the locations that's going to be the solar powered digital readouts, so that as folks are coming in town, like at the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, we're going to have the your speed is, and it's going to flash, and we're going to try to slow some folks down there, so we're not having to write as many tickets, honestly. So
flash Shannon's on the next block.
Yeah, no, it's not going to say my name on there, but I think so. The town's doing those things too. They've repeatedly come to me and said, what else can they do? So I think this contract's very fair. Outlines everything we do.
Does CDOT have to approve that?
Yes, yes, they do. But we're buying ones that are used on other state signs around the state so that we haven't purchased those yet. We're still working through those dynamics, but they've agreed that they're going to spend that money to buy those. So
Just out of curiosity, do you have a similar agreement with Silver Cliff?
yes, and they just approved their budget last night, so that contract will be finalized, and we'll get that to you for signature as well. It's less money, in which it should be, because the resources aren't the same. But yes, they're almost identical.
Yeah.
No, the town's very fair with us, though.
This will sound very petty and picky, but it would be great if we had a cover letter, a cover sheet to say exactly what this is. Is it an intergovernmental agreement? Is it a contract between? This hit my desk and I kind of had to digest a bunch of it before I really kind of realized.
We can do that. That's easy enough.
Just an agreement from the sheriff's office with,
Easy enough.
or I mean, it certainly has nothing to do with the.
Because essentially, that was what we've been using. It's developed over the years. So I'm sure that Sheriff Job had originally put that together. Then we tweaked it, and then each year, county attorney Clint now just reviews that and makes sure that we hadn't missed something or obligated ourselves somewhere we shouldn't have been. So I'll just throw a cover letter on that for future. It's probably a good point.
Maybe contract's not the right word.
Just
It's an agreement.
it is.
Two government.
It could be rewritten as an intergovernmental agreement between the town of West Cliff and the county. But it's been functioning as a contract for years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a written agreement.
It is.
I move we approve the, again, contract with the sheriff's department and the town of
Jay
West
can't
Cliff.
second it, I will.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded to approve the contract discussion, of which, of course, you certainly are welcome to discuss. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
For the record, I abstain.
Yes, and with Jay abstaining from the vote. You're welcome.
So then I'll just need your signature.
Yeah, I'll sign those right now, and you can take them with you.
Okay. Well, yeah. You sign it. I'm going to give it to Brendan so she can get you a copy, or if she's fine with it, I can
go to your meeting.
Well, she may just want me to go copy it and send it to her too. I like electronic copies. I'd rather not have the hard copy, quite frankly.
You bet.
Sheriff, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir.
Have a wonderful day, fellas.
Custer County Corps of Chaplains is next on the agenda. Mr. Foster, thank you for your patience. Appreciate that. How are you, sir? Doing well.
Came here to
Back
welcome
there
both of you.
praying, I hope.
Always.
And that,
I'd like to welcome both of you. Oh,
thank you.
it's you.
Did you have a question for Donna?
Oh, I didn't see her come in.
Yeah.
Yes, if I may ask real quick, beg your patience, Mr. Foster, is that okay?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Do we need to do something officially, or the other half of my question is, how is the line item budget for economic development worded on the proposed budget for 2018? Do you know that right off? Is it just economic development, or is it for Economic Development Corporation?
It's economic development, period.
Period.
As if it could have been any different.
I've got it, but I knew I couldn't look it up as quick as you could give us that answer. So then just quickly back to our conversation, then it stands as is.
Unless you want to reduce the amount they're asking for.
That's correct.
Okay, we need to fix it, but we're gonna have a meeting about that.
And we will deal with that. I just was curious if we need to get Donna's input on how that's worded as a line item, but we're good.
Yeah, it's just worded that it
Okay.
could have been any form of economic
All right.
development.
Thank you,
It just
ma'am. That
happens
was
to be that one.
perfect. Thank you for coming in here. Sorry, sir. Please have a seat. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm blessed. I just wanted to congratulate you both.
Thanks.
Thank you for your public service. Not an easy job to do. I read the papers too. So for all of you, I just wanted to come here, not to ask anything of you, just to let you know of who we are. You may have seen us in the newspaper. We are a brand new corporate 501c3 public entity. And our main two things that we do for anybody is comfort and care in times of tragedy. We have trained chaplains in that, crisis intervention and law enforcement to boot. And we also have seasoned veterans with 30, 40 years in doing various types of emergency service, from critical care on scene to follow-up counseling and so forth. So we have very well seasoned veterans within the Corps. And that's not Corp, it's C-O-R-E, the Center of God's Heart. And that's what's registered on our state documents. And just wanted to come by real quick. I handed you our cover letter that goes out. And as Dr. Custer, who serves on our board, reiterated on last week, that the first 3 years of our existence, we can only accept monies up to $50,000 for our board of directors for the ministry itself, or service I should say. And then, but if it is an unexpected donation that was not solicited, it's open end. So the information is on the back of that cover letter. It's got our ID, as well as for the bank and the tracking number. If you guys, separate from your job here at the board, know somebody who would like to give an unexpected gift, that's part of my job, is not only as the president of the board, as also as the head chaplain as well. I'm wearing two hats here. Not that I want to, but it was kind of like I had no choice. So that's all I have that I wanted to quickly, so let you guys move on. If you have any questions for me, I can answer that.
Eric, thanks for doing this first. I mean, this is really such an important thing, and I know we as a board previously endorsed it, and I still do today. My question is, your Corps of Chaplains is, tell me if I'm misunderstanding this, that your Corps of Chaplains really is to aid first responders, not victims. Is that correct?
Well, it's kind of a catch-22. We don't turn anybody down. Our first responsibility is to all of our emergency service. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, dysfunction, death. There's actually two more that go on to that. That's not normally spoken about professionally, but they do follow each other. If the need is not met from people in emergency service, we have, and that includes military. They are emergency service. They just serve in a foreign land. And then you've got our National Guard as well, which serves on our soil. All these folks, within the stress of their jobs, go through a lot of trauma. I know. I spent my whole life, over 30 years, in emergency service, so I know what it's like, and I have gone through it myself. And a lot of folks out there don't realize that they have it. So with the Corps of Chaplains, one of the many functions that we are here to provide is a place that somebody who is having issues can come and talk to. We can help them. We can help find out what kind of treatment that they need, and we refer them to a higher level of professional treatment. We're what I call the spiritual paramedics on the street. Paramedics in real life, they're quick emergency medicine, and then they turn them off to the emergency room, to the doctors. We are no different as chaplains. We give comfort and care, and if they need more than what we can give them, we triage them as quickly as possible and get them off to where they need to go at the next level. And then we leave it from there. We are a short-term type of ministry to people who are in need, whatever the cause may be. So that covers all of emergency service, veterans, and the general public if somebody should come up to us. And we have plenty of resources here in Custer County that we can turn them over. Human services, we have a secular counseling service, and we have a religious counseling service, whatever their choice is. We ask them, what would you like to do? Here are the programs we can offer you to take it to the next level, to get you what you need. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do.
Thank you.
Good. Sure. I enjoyed my opportunity to visit with you at a nonprofit function recently down at Lang Hall. And we did talk about long-term goals of housing your organization, where are you housed now?
We are homeless.
I was going to ask you where you hang your hat.
Well, right now we go to one place we call our little Barnes & Noble. It's Sangre Home Decor, and that's where we meet a lot of folks over coffee that want to meet us there. We have met with people. And anything that is really confidential, we don't meet there in the open public, of course. But we are brand new this year. January 31st was our official date of starting, so we're brand new. And like any organization, we're looking for help from the public to have a home right on Main Street. And as was mentioned earlier by another gentleman, and he coined the same thing that I've been saying, that from Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. We've talked to a number of people on the street. They love what we do, and they believe that if we have a facility right there on the crux of Main Street that is comfort and care, because Custer County Corps of Chaplains Comfort and Care, you can add cabin if you want, but a facility where they could come in and get off their chest what's bothering them, we could save a lot of problems for people that could lead to some serious issues and health issues for them. And so we need the facility. And we're on the back there, another one is a benevolence fund for emergency responders. That includes military. If we can build up a financial war chest, it would be there for them and their families should tragedy strike them. And also a large van, which we would put emergency supplies in there. That would be non-perishable food items, water, and clothing. Say if John Doe's house burns down in the middle of the night and we're called out to the scene, we have a van, we can give them clothes and stuff out of their pajamas, sweat tops and clothes, something like that. And then put work out an agreement with local facilities, hotels and things like that, and if they're on call, we call them up and say, hey, we've got 5 people here, their house just burned down, can you house them for the night? And we take them over there in the van. So that's another reason for the vehicle, as well as continuing education and training that we would have to go down the mountain to the Springs or Denver and things like that. So that's in the future. But we have goals. We'll see how long it takes for the Lord to make them happen. But I'm not asking that from you guys, just to let you know this is what we're about. And if you know somebody on the side, by all means, when you guys are done for the day here, you have your private lives too. And that's it.
Okay. Just a quick question. Are you an independent organization, or are you please forgive me if I sound ignorant, a member of a larger organization of Corps chaplains, or are you just a standalone entity?
We are a standalone entity, 501c3 public entity, and we are connected with Rocky Mountain Police Chaplains Association.
That's what I was
And they are up in the northern part of the state, and the agreement we have with them now from the chairman is that if we have a really bad incident that goes down here and we need some help, it takes one phone call and they have a response vehicle with trained chaplains that will come and show up at the incident command post. They'll report to me and say, what do you need?
Great.
And we put them to work. So we do have that connection there.
Super.
Good. Thank you for your passion.
Okay.
Appreciate
Good
it.
idea.
Thank you, sir.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Again, apologize for our time delay, but thank you, Eric. Any comments from the public? Certainly welcome. Yes, sir.
Am I to understand that the CCEDC, the Custer County Economic Development, this gentleman who's here, has been given the go-ahead to explore the logistics of the broadband project?
That's correct.
Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, we authorized that at our last meeting.
When are they going to report on what their plan or their thing is? Is there a timeline?
Not that I'm aware of, and certainly gentlemen jump in here. Their first step after that letter of support, if you will, vote of support from the commissioners, was to pursue the next phase in their grant. Is a timeline? I'm not aware of that.
If I may, Mr. Bailey, thanks for coming, by the way. A lot has been done by the Economic Development Corporation on broadband to this point. It hasn't been as public as it probably could be. They have had 2 major studies that have all been funded by grants. The county has spent $0 on broadband, and whether we do or not is a question that's open for the future. In the 2 studies, they determined what was needed, and then that was the first study. It was a needs assessment, and it was a huge study and they had a consultant come in, and they determined what would it take to bring broadband to the valley. Okay. Well, as it turned out, and I mean, feel free to contact them because they'll share with you copies of their study. The best they can do is 80% of the valley, so they're never going to get to 100% unless we do a satellite thing, which is not part of it. The second study was how do we accomplish it, and it was to put in 6 towers. The towers, the total investment in the towers was just shy of $2 million to put those the 6 towers in that would connect give the potential of connecting 80% of the county. So they have done a tremendous amount to this point. They're looking now to try and work on funding to see if they can actually come up with the money to put the towers in. Does that kind of help you with your timeline?
It does, but I just have a couple. You said that they had a consultant come in?
They did.
And did they fund the consultant out of their funds?
Absolutely. It came out. It was out of the grant, yes.
Now, are they going to be given the responsibility of finding grants and writing the grants?
That's correct.
Well, they're not eligible themselves for a grant through DOLA. They are through other entities.
I'm totally confused by that.
There's been a lot of talk recently about the DOLA grants that they hope to apply for or get involved with. They're not grant eligible through the Department of Local Affairs. We as a county commission are, so we will work with them, we'll represent them. Basically, they'll write those grants, but they will come through the county.
So it's not exactly representation, if I may.
Yeah.
Because it's very important to classify how this works. They come to us and say, we would like to apply for, let's say, $1 million grant, which is what they just applied for, which is what we just approved. And this is for site locations, towers, and that kind of thing. They, as a private corporation, cannot get DOLA money. DOLA money is state money given to state entities, okay, of which county is. They need the Board of County Commissioners and the public, through the county commissioners, to say that we approve you going forward with this project. Once we give them that, and I want to say the word endorsement, I'm just concerned about the terminology, because I don't want to say we're involved. We're not involved. We're just giving them, go for it. If you can get it, wonderful. If you can't, we gave it a shot. So what we've said to them as commissioners, we feel that this is important enough for you to continue moving forward on, and we're giving you the go-ahead to try and find the cash. And basically that's where it stands.
Okay, I'm trying to draw distinctions between private and public responsibility.
Willie, right now it's a private company, and they are taking the spearhead, as you know, to actually lead the charge to go find money to go build a nice system up there. We have been asked if we think that's a good idea, and we said it's a good idea. And that's the endorsement piece. That's as far as it's gone, and we have not put a dime into it yet. We have a budget line established, so if somebody else came up with a better mousetrap to do it, they give us a better business plan to endorse, we would consider that as well.
What I'm trying to distinguish here is what their responsibilities are. Now, I've stated what my understanding of what their responsibilities are, and I'm going to restate it again to make sure there's no misunderstanding. They will search, if that's the correct word, for grant possibilities, correct?
Yes.
Will they write the grants?
Yes.
And the commissioners will approve or disapprove of that work grant, right?
If it requires us to be part of that grant, they could find money from Daddy Warbucks with $1 billion somewhere, or another agency of some kind as well. They are free to get money wherever they want. It's their business.
That's a given. That's
Okay.
I've already said that. The point is, I'm trying to draw distinctions as to who is doing what and who approves what. Now, they will search for grant money from wherever, correct?
Right.
Certainly.
They will write those grants subject to approval by the commission.
If needed.
If
Correct.
needed, and that's why Bill's saying if needed.
So they don't need your approval to write to submit a grant?
Absolutely not.
Who approves who approves the reception of the grant money and the writing of the grants? Doesn't that have to be approved by the commission?
If required.
Depends on the grant.
It depends on the grant. That's exactly, and that's why I said
So
if
they
it's
can
a
get
DOLA grant.
They can get grant money and without your approval and go out and start building towers?
Sure.
Private enterprise if they want to. You went way too far on that question.
I'm trying
Hang
to
on.
reach an
Let me answer
understanding
that.
and I'm not
Let me answer.
getting that.
They cannot go out and build towers. Stop right there.
Okay.
They are not a utility, okay? They can get the money. Ultimately, it's going to come to us to decide whether we approve this or not, okay? There are locations it's going to have to go, most likely on private land, but there may be some public land involved. There's so many more questions. They will not go out and fund and build 6 towers without this county approving it.
That's
a
exactly what my
guarantee.
question was.
Absolute guarantee. We, 2/3 of us, hopefully all 3 of us, if we're all in agreement, but it will take 2/3 of us to say, yes, go build your towers.
So all of this must go through the approval of the commission.
Not all of it, because they can go
If we're
collect.
going to have 6 towers out there, okay, paid for by grant money or whatever, it has to go through the commission, correct?
We've authorized them to try and locate funds for this project,
Right.
okay? Every part is a step. We were with them when they said, we're going after grants to get a study to do this. Are you okay with that? And we said, yes, we approve that. They did that, and we came back and they said, now we're going to try and find the money. Is that okay? We said yes, because some of the grants they're going after, and I don't know if there are other grants, but I know one of them's the DOLA grant, Department of Local Affairs. That takes a county endorsement of the project. We think there's merit enough for them to warrant this money. Then they can get the money and still come to us and say, we want to start building, and we can at that point say, no, go return your funds because we're not going to approve it. So there are multiple steps in this process, and the Board of County Commissioners will be involved in every single step. No private entity is going to build towers without this board approving it.
Let me clarify here just quickly,
Please.
Jay. Did AT&T get county permission to put in cell towers up here?
Absolutely.
See, so the same process that goes through for it could be a private company putting their own money in it without us spending a dime, which we didn't spend any money on an AT&T tower up here or Verizon or anybody else. But it matters from a public point of view on what we see as the right thing for the county.
The point here I'm trying to get a clear question answered is that the broadband project, if brought to completion, has to go through the board.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Correct. It won't happen unless we approve.
Thank you.
Other public comment?
But that doesn't mean we spend the money.
Hearing none, we'll.
I didn't go any further than what I said.
We can approve anything.
That's right.
Does any commissioner request an executive session?
I do not have one.
Hearing none. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
We moved and seconded to adjourn. Let the record show that it was at 12:40.